Yeah, so I am Elk. That's on Twitter. I'm just at Elk. I started playing right as the game released on a laptop with 40 FPS. That's kind of why I went to support because I couldn't really play any of the more mechanically demanding roles. And then just kind of like stayed around the tier 3, tier 4 scene for a while, broke through, got onto EG when they had an Overwatch team for a short period of time, and just kind of knew people that ended up bringing me up along the way. Pretty lucky overall.
Awesome. And you've just recently started. Have you been streaming for a while, or did I just find you recently? How long have you actually been streaming on
I
Twitch?
I have not been doing reviews. I've been streaming just like playing comp and stuff. I had like last season I ended with one account rank 25, one account rank 43, one account rank 114. Mostly I just stream playing comp, but especially in recent seasons I think it's gotten a little bit worse. So I've been trying to gravitate more towards like review and overall improvement in the game rather than just mechanical.
Now, the first time that I found you was Mangachu hosted your stream, and he said that Elk probably has the best mind in Overwatch. And I was like, big words. I'm a big fan of Mangachu. I love him as a player, as a person, and for Mangachu to give somebody that big of a wholehearted recommendation and endorsement, I decided to stick around. And especially it was coming at a time where I had been looking for other sources of analysis and review to kind of improve my own skills because I am trying to eventually do this professionally and constantly learning. Right, you're learning even if you know what perfectly what's going on in the meta today. The meta is going to be different tomorrow, and you need to keep up with it. And honestly, it was like 5 or 10 minutes into your analysis, I was just already blown away, and knew you were the real deal. So enough of like stroking your ego and all that, but what is your background and what makes how did you spend a lot of time learning Overwatch? Do you have a university degree in something like this? Like, what is your background? What makes you different from anybody else, and why do you understand Overwatch way better than any of us mere mortals?
So I'm 18, right? I signed my first contract with a professional gaming org when I was 16 years old. So my whole background is more of like playing chess, playing Magic the Gathering, playing Hearthstone. I don't really have a background in like FPSs or MOBAs. My background is entirely strategy games. And so I just kind of approached Overwatch the same way I approached them, which is the end goal is to win the map, and let's just try to break that down into every little section and figure out how to approach that rather than thinking about it from a first-person shooter standpoint where it's like, if I get more headshots, I should win.
This is very true, and there's a lot of other people. Like Overwatch is less of a hardcore shooter like CS:GO or Battlefield or anything like that. And it definitely has way more MOBA elements, despite being in the first person, the first person shooter genre. Yes, those words are hard. Words are hard. So, you've been playing since beta or since season 1?
Yeah, I didn't get into beta, unfortunately, and the computer I had wasn't even good enough to run Overwatch at all, so I had to borrow my dad's.
That's
For like
awesome.
the first, I think 8 months I was playing on his laptop.
Now, so there's always kind of the discussion about between talent and practice. Where did you place and finish season 1?
I think I placed rank 55. I was playing Kree only, and then I swapped to a tank main. I played Reinhardt and Zarya, and I think I finished rank 79.
Holy smokes!
Yeah, playing on 40 FPS, and that's actually I posted, believe it or not, in the competitive Overwatch Discord, not even the OW, in like the Cow League Discord, and that's how I found my first team.
So you went from
After season
basically
1, I got
mid
right into
plat
it.
to what at the time was upper top 500, wasn't it? 79.
Yeah, it was pretty high.
Yeah, that's that on a laptop with 40 FPS. So I'm kind of one of the guys that doesn't really believe talent exists. I just I'm sorry to interrupt, but we just got a host from DeFran for 7,741 viewers.
No worries. That's an insanely large number of viewers.
That is.
It's kind of absurd.
That is absolutely absurd. So, first of all, welcome to Fran viewers. You guys are in for an absolute treat today, and you hosted at the perfect time. So, first off, thank you so much to DeFran. Hope you had a fantastic stream. And DeFran viewers, what are you in for? Well, first of all, I'm not clicking heads. Certainly, even if I was, I wouldn't be clicking heads nearly as well as DeFran does. However, what we're going to be doing today is we have Elk on with us, Elk being the support player, or one of them, for the Fusion University, and we're going to be doing some analysis videos on Overwatch League games. So we were just talking to Elk about his backstory, just doing a little bit of a, precursor interview before we jump into the games, just to let the viewers know kind of who Elk is, because he's not, one of the big names. He's not a famous guy, but goddamn is he a smart guy. So together, we're going to try and break down some Overwatch League games to try and make them easier to understand and maybe do a deeper dive into the analysis of some of these games. So welcome, all the viewers. 7,000, I think that's the largest host I've ever received.
Yeah, that's the largest host I've heard of in Overwatch.
So Elk, you're my good luck charm. You're never leaving. You're just I'm just going to chain you to a chair, and you are now my good luck charm. Just fasten you into a necklace. Anyway, so
easy to friend hosts.
So same sort of thing, and this is actually DeFran. We can kind of work DeFran into this conversation. Now, of my personal opinion, talent is either non-existent or is a very, very minor factor in how successful you are in Overwatch. I put a lot more emphasis on practice. Now, getting to like upper top 500 season 1 on a laptop at 40 FPS, that's pretty impressive. Did it just click for you? Did all of it just kind of like make sense, or was there a lot of like grind and practice? Or tell us a little bit about how you went from what is essentially just barely platinum to the best of the best in a single season on a laptop.
Yeah, so I think it was, I was obviously in high school and I just had so much free time that I think I played like 1,100 comp games that season.
1,100?
Like every day I got home from school. Every day I go home from school, I played comp games. I just try to play comp as much as possible all day, every day.
Wow.
So like I put so much time into the game at first that it kind of helped me just get like my bearing as what I could do without like a good computer or anything else.
Now, was the climb actually, more like linear? As you were playing all these games, did you just like slowly rank up over time, or was it like very quickly got to Masters, Grandmaster took a little bit longer? Was it more of like a logarithmic? It became much harder to improve the higher you went. What was your experience there?
I think I was hovering around 65 for a while, and then I bought like a good headset with a mic because I was playing without a mic.
Yeah.
So as soon as I got a mic and I just started like really coordinating my team is when I went from 65 to high 70s.
That's awesome.
As soon as I started like being more micromanagement style, it started working out a lot better.
And in terms of now, I just realized that my shirt is actually being green screened, so I'm going to go change very quickly. But while I'm gone in like the 30 seconds, tell chat about the experience of going from like a tier 3 team and how you actually got picked up to play for Fusion University. Go.
Okay, so my first team I posted in the competitive Overwatch Discord, or the Cow League, which is the Discord for the subreddit. And one coach was like, "Hey, we want you to try out. Come look at our team." And I ended up going there, and they were like, "Mechanically, you're not good enough, but we might want to try you on support because your comms are really good. You have really good communication." So obviously I was like, that sounds awesome. I'll go for it. I ended up getting on the team, and then the coach from that team ended up leaving. So he kind of left the team alone. He went off, and I think he was trialing with TSM for a bit and ended up making another team called Eastwind that was pretty successful. They got into the Carbon series in like the early Overwatch stage. After that, he left the team again to go work with other organizations, but the manager for that team got us the EG signing. So we ended up working with EG for a little while, and then I left that team to go to Thailand to play with a Southeast Asian Overwatch team in OPC, which is the Overwatch Pacific Championship. After doing that and having, in my opinion, a lackluster performance, I came back to the US, ended up getting on Fusion University, which is pretty exciting.
Awesome. And the eventual goal, of course, is an Overwatch League team?
Yeah, my goal, well, that's kind of my goal, but that's not really like, I don't necessarily have a timeline for that, if that makes sense. I want to be in as soon as possible, but
if I decide to go to Overwatch League, they deserve me.
Yeah, no, not in that way, but in like if let's say someone offered me a starting position right now,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd want to take it because I still want to focus on like individual improvement, and I don't know if the best setting for that is in Overwatch League.
That's interesting. Why would you think that Overwatch League is not the best setting for improvement when they have team houses, the best coaches and analysts in the game, the highest level of opponents and strategies, cutting edge meta? Why would you think that Overwatch League is not the best place to improve yourself? Is it just how much you're playing and competing, or what
Yeah,
are your
it's
thoughts?
it's really hard with the amount of time you have, in my opinion. I think that a lot of what Overwatch League teams are doing is just trying to cover their weaknesses for their next match and trying to like improve the team as quickly as possible. But from like an individual point of view, I don't know if that's the best place for like me to learn and become like emotionally mature about the game and kind of like mentally mature about the game and how you think about it in like the long term.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd rather get to a point where I'm confident with my fundamental understanding about everything in Overwatch before I'd want to go into a position where I'm like at the tier 1 pro level.
So if you're not currently happy with your understanding of Overwatch and you're better than all of the rest of us, honestly, I'm going to be completely honest. Ever since I started watching your streams, probably about a week or two ago, I've become a little bit of a fanboy. I'm going to be completely honest. Some of the stuff you say is like it should be painfully obvious, and it just straight up escaped me. So, like, what is there anyone that you in turn look up to that you are like really impressed by their knowledge and understanding? Do you have like an idol or a mentor or somebody that you're looking to learn from primarily, or is it more self-study that you're going to be doing to really get that last little bit that you feel you need before you join Overwatch League?
So actually, one of the most interesting things especially in Overwatch, but in every competitive like strategy game that I've ever played, is you get a lot of information from everybody. So no matter who they are, everybody is always giving you advice because at some point you're at the bottom and people are still imparting advice on you, and that's fine and good. But you have to be able to use like your own mental filter to kind of decide what is and isn't correct about their advice. 'Cause
Absolutely.
what everybody is saying, they all have some truth to it, right? Like if a tank player tells you like, I need you to be more aggressive with me because I'm dying, that might not mean that you should position more aggressive, but that you need to calm where you are more.
Mm-hmm.
There's some truth to every piece of feedback you get.
Yeah, it's
so
it's the saying that I always use is trust but verify. You're trusting that they're telling you information that is correct, but you want to verify and understand, because there's a difference between knowledge, understanding, and comprehension. Like knowledge, you understand, your knowledge, you understand the actual information. Understanding, you understand how that we arrived at that understanding. And then comprehension, you're understanding why it's that answer and not something else. So there's, the differences between knowledge, understanding, and comprehension when it comes into especially strategy games.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like, I want to be in a place where I feel like no matter what information I'm given, I understand where that person's coming from. Because I think
Absolutely.
that just helps with interacting with teams as a whole. And like being in a position where I feel like if I go into any team and I just listen to everybody's opinion, I can have a solid understanding of how that team plays. Whereas I think sometimes for me, especially, it can take me a little bit to like warm up to how a team plays and kind of figure out everybody's style and stuff.
So have you watched the Overwatch League games from yesterday?
No, I was actually scrimming during all of them, so I have
Perfect.
not seen any of them.
So what we're going to do is we're going to select one map from the various series. The 3 series happens that yesterday, and we're going to analyze them. So I think the first one that we're going to start off with is going to be the which maps? There we go. Friday. Awesome. So the first one that we're going to be looking at is the Los Angeles Gladiators versus the Dallas Fuel. Now, the Los Angeles Gladiators won that series 3-1, and we're going to be looking at the map where the Dallas Fuel actually did manage to pick up the victory 4-3 on Route 66. So
both teams completing 66 is interesting.
Yes, both teams completing 66, and then it was in the overtime pushes in which Fuel actually decided the victory. So what we're going to be doing is taking a look at this map, and we're going to be trying to analyze why, in this map's particular, Dallas Fuel was actually able to sneak out the win, where Gladiators and a lot of the other teams, have not been giving them very many maps in the past. So I'm just going to do a very quick screen share so that you can kind of see what I am doing here. Turn on screen share. source 30, click, share. You should be able to see my screen and put it to full screen if you'd like.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to go in and we're going to take a look at Route 66 between the Dallas Fuel and Los Angeles Gladiators. So how we'll do it is I'll start out doing a little bit of analysis at the start and do a little bit more of my thoughts, and then I'll pass it on to you to tell me why I'm dumb and what the real answer was. Sound good?
Sure thing.
Awesome. Cool. Let's get to work then. Okay.
All right, welcome back from the break, everybody. It's a 3-0 win for the Gladiators. We still will play the fourth.
Don't care. Let's find the actual game.
76, so not a whole lot should change. You're not going to see a big variation as well. It's just going to be a matter of where
So
Dallas
this defensive
wants
comp
to set
already
up.
is really weird to me.
And why is that?
So you see a lot of different metas, especially between North America and Korean contenders, in that Korean contenders plays a lot more Sombra than North American contenders does.
Yeah.
And with the new Sombra change, obviously you have EMP a little bit less, but she's a better flanker. I don't know if I like the Mercy Zen here.
And what about the Mercy Zen? Because Mercy Zen itself, it contributes quite a bit of offense to a composition with both Discord and damage boost. The defensive support ult from Zenyatta, the resurrect utility if you actually do find an opportunity to safely use it. What about the Zenyatta and the Mercy do you not like in this sort of Tracer Sombra dive composition?
I think it's weak to Widow, and the reason I feel that way is because you're playing, because you're playing Sombra Tracer already. Like, your tanks can't really disengage easily. They're going to be holding the close corner, and then if they get poked out, they have to jump back. And without speed, like, you can heal them up, but you're still just going to be slowly giving up room. You're kind of waiting for your Sombra Tracer to make space for your tanks to push up. And against Widow, your Sombra Tracer aren't going to be having that space because Sombra Tracer into Mercy Zen is weak. So I'd rather see a
Sombra Tracer into Mercy Zen is weak?
Yeah, because it's a lot harder for the Sombra Tracer to flank and kill Zenyatta with the Mercy Pocket. Focusing tanks is a little bit harder.
You need to talk slower. Chat's not following.
Okay.
Slower, my friend. Slower.
Dallas's compound defense is trying to find an opening in the backline with Sombra Tracer.
Absolutely.
I think that's fine against most comps, but Gladiators run a lot of Widowmaker.
Absolutely.
Right? Asher can play Widow, Surefour can play Widow. And because they're not playing Silk Thread here, I think it's reasonable to assume they're going to be on Widow with Surefour.
Okay.
Widow into the Mercy Zen comps pretty much just gets to take space until Dallas engage.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very hard for Sombra Tracer to force an engage like that.
Okay, let's keep this playing until we actually see what the Los Angeles Gladiators are going to run on attack here.
And, it's a little bit surprising they're not going to try to Widow into this, but, yeah.
I hope they stick on that
That's their own.
I hope they stick on Doomfist.
It's just like, nah, don't want to have anything to do with the Widow right now.
I mean, stage one was definitely, if you don't have a Tracer, go home, right? And then teams have now all found Tracers. And now it's like, if you don't have a Widow, good luck. I mean, you can still win, but good luck. It's a lot easier if you have one. We'll see if the Sombra works out, though. And Los Angeles might actually play around this, too, and maybe put Surefour on a McCree, which is much more anti-Sombra than a Widow is, but...
Okay, so you are correct. They're running the Tracer Widowmaker dive. Pretty standard. We've seen a lot of this. We've seen this on Volskaya. Like so many teams, especially on the first point, run this mirror composition of the Tracer Widowmaker. Now, you were saying specifically that Mickey and Siegel here are going to be holding the corner themselves, and they're going to be looking for effect in AKM to make space. And they're going to be going through either the tunnel or the flank, like over by Coast, in order to flank around. Is that what you had said previously?
Yeah, you want the Sombra and Tracer to kind of be picking the targets, because if your tanks peek and take poke, they can't really initiate with the dive.
Absolutely. Now, what is the value of having Harry Hook here on the Mercy when you don't have any sort of longer range DPS to pocket, like a Widowmaker of your own, a Soldier, a McCree, or anything? Why Mercy over something like an Anna or a Lucio, something like that?
So I think if I was playing defense 66, I think if I'm looking at Dallas's comp, it transitions well into second point. I think that's the main reason they're starting off on this, because second point is a lot of high ground and it's hard to run Lucio there.
Mm-hmm.
But for first point specifically, I think the weakness in Dallas's comp is if you can just have your flanker pressure out either effect or AKM, it's really hard for Dallas to engage on you.
So what you're saying here is that Gladiators wants to do is, I guess, Asher wants to take the fight with a Effector AKM. So instead of kind of like flanking onto Unco and Harry Hook, which you had noted is admittedly weak, instead of doing that, Asher wants to stay kind of closer to the team and work at fighting off flankers like Effect and AKM. Am I interpreting correctly?
Yeah, and my only concern with the way Dallas is playing is, or at least I assume they're going to be playing the Zen Mercy, is that they look like they want to play aggressive and they have to play aggressive into the Widow, and that's just harder to do without speed boost.
And how is Los Angeles Gladiators here actually going to get Surefour to have the space or the positioning he needs to actually get work? With Asher on Tracer, he's going to be playing a little bit farther back and trying to protect the entire composition from Effect and AKM's assault here. But as soon as Surefour takes in a position, what's to stop Dallas Fuel from just hard engaging right then and there onto the Widowmaker?
They definitely can. If Surefour still has grapple up and Bishu has Matrix, it's going to be pretty hard to burst him, especially because where he dies, he should be at a LOS of the support line for Dallas. So my assumption for how the fight's going to go is Surefour's going to push up, either look for a pick and get it, and they're going to push up and take space, push up, get a chunk on a tank, they're going to take space, or push up and get dove. If he gets dove, the only important thing for him to do is to make sure he stays alive as long as possible and dies somewhere they can res him. And I'd be very surprised.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, what? I'd be very surprised if he dies somewhere he can't get res, because Dallas Fuel don't really have a good way to commit and stay in a fight. They're more of commit, then use the Somber Locator and the Tracer Recall to back out of the fight and try to reset after getting a pick.
And while it's not necessarily, suicide to grapple, using grapple offensively on Widowmaker definitely presents an opportunity for the defenders, the Dallas Fuel here, to actually dive on it. Where even though a high ground position might be more beneficial for a Widowmaker to be in order for Surefour to actually get onto the high ground without using grapple, he'd have to use the ramp or something like that. Because just the act of getting onto the high ground with the grapple could provide an opportunity for the Dallas Fuel to actually punish. So it's likely that we'll probably see Surefour sticking around the payload or kind of just rotating with the team so that he's well protected. And if he does get dove, he has that grapple to escape.
Yeah, I actually think one of the greatest matches or greatest games on 66 I've ever seen in all of Overwatch history, as weird as that sounds, was Houston Outlaws versus London Spitfire.
Mm-hmm.
In, I believe, their final match in Stage 2. I don't think it was in Stage 1, not their playoff match, because both teams just played the map so well that it came down to such cool outplays, and I think that's really what Gladiators are kind of adapting the style that Houston played on attack, which is make room for the Widow, and it's still really awkward from the defensive side. There's no good way to answer Surefour on Widow.
Absolutely. Well,
so you're really just trying to mitigate his picks. But
that's probably enough of talking. Let's see actual gameplay and see what happens.
No, this is the Gladiators rollout, and now they're being, they're just going to push in and try to find the right angles.
Yeah, AKM is already on the back line right now, so
you can see Asher sticking a little bit closer. He's just kind of hiding in that tunnel.
And there we go.
Fisher just trying to make a little bit of room here.
Nothing too crazy yet, just creating the space here for Surefour to start looking for those shots. He spots him, gives him a bit of a trim there. Unco getting the heel shot out from under him. This is throwing things somewhat into disarray here for Dallas Fuel, although Siegel really trying to stay focused on Surefour will eventually get demeched.
Well, they've taken out both supports on the other side.
So quite a few losses from both teams, but let's try and figure out what caused Mickey, of all people, to drop first. If you had been looking at this, would you have ever predicted Mickey to be the one to drop first in this sort of composition? Seems a little bit off script, right?
The only way Mickey should be dying is if Surefour gets a damage boosted headshot into him.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, Mickey should be dying probably after the DPS back out of the fight. It still kind of makes sense he dies first. If they overcommit for a dive, he's probably the one who dies.
And this is, again, Mickey we're talking about, not exactly a main tank specialist who, at least in the matches that I've seen, has overcommitted on more than one dive.
So they will know definitely. Surefour gets chopped down to about half HP.
Okay, let's watch Mickey's health here, where he's positioned.
Going for the poke on the high ground. Nothing too crazy yet, just creating the space here for Surefour to start looking for those.
Mickey's in the back line somehow. Did he come through tunnel?
Oh, it looks like Mickey and AKM and Effect are flanking from
through tunnel
right now.
I think that's correct, yes.
This camera angle is a bit weird, though, I agree.
Shots, he spots.
Yeah, so Mickey doesn't...
Yeah, and then they...
So he dies to a right click.
Mickey walks in front by the cart as AKM is flanking to try to go on Shaz, and then Mickey just gets right-clicked because Siegel's not with him.
Absolutely.
As you can see, Siegel on high ground.
Gives him a bit of a
I think
trim there.
AKM finishes off
Getting that
Shaz
heel
because
shot out
Mercy's
from
not
under
killing
him. This is throwing things as somewhat
And of
into
course, with
disarray here.
Mickey
Dallas
going down and then the mech of Seagull being broken very soon afterwards, on top of the spawn advantage in favor of the LAG, this first point should be more or less forfeit, or at least the recontest will come out. It won't like they'll get a recontest, but this like corner and gas station hold. As I say that, of course, Bishu and Asher both drop.
Yeah, Effect and AKM did a really good job in the middle of that fight. As soon as Surefour went up on a high ground, they just dove Shaz, and then when Big Goose went to res Shaz, they dove Big Goose. So Gladiators
Well,
lost
more
both
they were
supports.
already there than Shaz. They really didn't do a second dive. They were just already well positioned there. Nice right click from Unko to take out Surefour. Unko really is quite good on that Zenyatta in terms of mechanical skill. Well, do you think the Custa Unko trade favored Fuel?
That's a hard one. I don't really know team environment wise. It's like really hard to say. I think Custa's a strong positive IGL, which is what Valiant needed, and it didn't seem like it was helping with Fuel at the time, so probably it favored both teams. But I think for Fuel, it's just hard to say given their performance recently.
That's, of course, the best situation is when the trade is best for both teams. Oh, nice double pulse. Of course, it was just the stick onto Harryhook and He Guardian Angels into AKM here. Don't really see any opportunity that Fuel can fight this back. You know, Seagull won't use bomb. He'll just take the L and recontest with it available to him. Now,
as long as Effect and AKM stay alive, they get a solid recontest here, though, with EMP.
Absolutely. So here, Asher's trying to prevent the contest, or then they don't want them to stabilize it any sort of way and where they can stage from this spot. Asher making it so that Dallas Fuel, if they do kind of stage in this area before the recontest, that they're at least going to take pressure and poke before the engage. And where is Surefour right now? Do we see Surefour? He was on gas, but I'm not sure where he's gone to.
Yeah, I'm not either. The important thing here for Gladiators too, they're both going to be back high ground. The important thing for Gladiators is because you have both tank ults, like a prolonged fight on the cart is good for you. The Sombra is probably not going to be able to get into your backline and get off the EMP.
Absolutely.
So as long as you just make room for your Widow and Zen by having your tanks play cart and stall, you're probably going to be fine.
And even with a solo EMP against a Mercy and a Zenyatta is not always an insta-kill anyway, because if Big Goose is keeping that pocket right on Shaz, then it's going to be not impossible, but at least more difficult for AKM to burn through that remaining 50 HP. So unless, and I don't like, with Big Goose, I'm not sure where Shaz is, but I assume Shaz is back here somewhere. So we have Surefour right here, Big Goose right here, and Shaz is gonna be back there as well, right? Because the tanks are here, they're gonna be in orb range. It's gonna be really nice sight lines. We're just gonna. I was just about to draw 2 arrows, but we're gonna refrain from doing that because you've got that really nice sight line from both the Widowmaker and the Zenyatta. So with Mercy there and Surefour there, like if AKM does go for the EMP once he charges it onto that backline, unless he has support, he's not going to be successful. So we're probably going to see the EMP come out to tanks to reduce their utility and survivability and just try and burn them down, maybe playing as best they can outside the LOS of Big Goose, Shaz, and Surefour. Is there a different way? Would you play this a different way?
I think obviously no fight in Overwatch is going to be perfect, but if you're Dallas here, the only way you're winning this fight is if AKM builds EMP and then you have a really good dive where Mickey ults and stalls cart, and then you have Seagull, AKM, and Effect dive the backline. I think if you don't dive the backline here, it's almost impossible you win, because if you EMP tanks, Shaz trances. If you don't EMP tanks, the tanks have ults. I think that like Dallas in this fight, realistically, is just trying to force out either both tank ults or one of the support ults going into second.
Prediction for who wins this fight? Dallas Fuel or Los Angeles Gladiators?
I think if Gladiators lose this fight, they fucked up massively. I can't imagine them losing this fight.
Absolutely agree with that. Let's see how they manage to fuck it up.
Did they lose this fight?
I don't know. I'm just joking.
Okay.
I haven't seen this map.
He's got Seagull there as well to follow suit. And so the tanks will go launching their way onto that.
Nice body block from Fisher into the primal.
Has to use the primal, but he has managed to push some of these supports apart. So that will make life
some nice double hits in there.
Really trying to stay on top of it. Harry Hawk will fire.
God, Fisher's nuts. Fisher's just primal control is absolutely next level.
That will certainly have an impact.
There's the EMP. It does come out onto the tanks. Trading, but still in favor of the Gladiators, and Bishu still has bomb to remech. There it is. Is Bishu going to survive?
has the bodies, but it seems like the Gladiators want to be aggressive. Short trying to kneecap the Diva.
Well, it was a lot closer than either of us expected.
Right now, so frustrated. Shaz.
Yeah, I think that
manages to get it going. Oh, AKM
I think that
just barely around the
Gladiators
corner.
may have
There's a
gotten a
hungry play
bit
here.
too aggressive at the start of it.
Yeah, like using the Primal there, especially when if he didn't know that Mercy had the Valkyrie, he would have been able to zone all of them. But with that Valkyrie going through and just barely surviving long enough to actually get them onto the point, it was a sacrifice, but that was the main reason that it was as close as it was here. And now we're just in the cleanup phase.
Yeah, these are good staggers by Gladiators, especially to push up and get the Widow like a proactive angle. Making sure that even exiting spawn is hard for Dallas is very nice. As a support player, it always scares me when Widows are set up.
Yeah. Transitioning from first to second point, would you be wanting to see any swaps from either team?
I think Mercy Zen here is good from Dallas' side. The Mercy has the ability to heal both high ground and low ground, which is important. But maybe a Genji swap, although AKM can't really do that. Or at least going Widow.
Please don't recommend AKM go on Genji.
In an ideal world, probably Genji. In this lineup, probably Widow from AKM.
Just melee only Tracer coming out here. That was 6 melees in a row. Nice. Okay, so still pushing, and they've got Harry Hook does swap off the Mercy and go onto Lucio. So like you were talking, the ability to heal the low ground and the high ground at the same time is lost, but they do have the double defensive support ultimates right now, and the a little bit better ability to peel against a coordinated dive, I suppose.
Yeah, I think he mostly swapped just because he got picked and had to make it back to cart, though.
Oh, so you think it was just a way for him to get back to point quicker?
Yeah, I think after this fight, he'll either swap back or AKM will get off Sombra.
Which would you prefer if you had to choose?
So there's a weird meta right now in all of like the Sombra Widow shenanigans, which is like, even if you're a worse Widow, you can't not run Widow. You can play the Widow in like a more passive style where you're trying not to take the duel and like having your tank scout for you, so you can try to mitigate how often you're gonna be in that 1v1 matchup.
Yep.
But it's really, really hard to not play Widow into Widow or dive into Widow. And like the Sombra Tracer stuff, the way Sombra Tracer works as like a fundamental comp is you're much more looking to pressure tanks than you are the supports. Because you have that hack, if tanks are like out of position or overextend, it's really easy to punish them. Whereas with Genji, it's a lot more like flank and just go into the enemy backline.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I discuss in terms of like how to counter Widowmaker is that if the Widowmaker is well positioned or well protected, there's no other way to counter the Widowmaker with a singular hero or individual other than your own Widowmaker. So if you do want to counter a Widowmaker, you can do some sort of coordinated dive, but at that point you're investing a very large amount of resources into a character that gets, a pretty powerful movement ability up every 8 seconds, and is not the easiest thing to take out, especially since she has no fall-off range and can sit extremely far back. So I agree with you that probably one of the best ways to deal with an opposing Widowmaker is running a Widowmaker of your own, even if you, have the worst Widowmaker player, if you will. You can try and avoid those duels, but it always gives you that threat and that option.
Yeah, I think going into third, Dallas would be a little better off. Like, there's less sightlines for Surefour to use, and it's easier for AKM and Effect to set up on dives like they were playing Genji Tracer. Like, they can be a lot more aggressive on third, but I would have liked to see Dallas either start on something different or at least swap for second.
Awesome. No swaps so far? AKM wouldn't swap off with having EMP anyway.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that Harry Hook is staying Lucio.
Would it be more that Harry Hook is more comfortable on Lucio than Mercy? Is that another kind of good in theory, but in the same way that you wouldn't want to recommend AKM play Genji, you wouldn't want to keep Harry Hook on Mercy?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, if I'm playing Lucio here, I'm probably swapping Ana. But I think supports are in a spot right now where it's really what you're comfortable on team-wise.
Yeah, there is quite a nice balance between the supports right now, absolutely.
Yeah, more so than what's like 100% optimal.
Okay, so still...
Dallas really...
Go ahead.
Dallas messed up there. AKM contested early and just died to Shaz.
Died to a right click.
Yeah, they needed to have a real fight here in the start of third. It's going to be really hard for them to retake this.
Yeah, so they haven't forced a fight. Even a losing fight is better than no fight at all, especially since the payload has already now moved halfway. Like, it's not nearly as bad as Nimbani third, but when we were just talking about Nimbani third, how the spawn differential is just so very heavily in favor of the defenders that it's basically 2 CP. Now, like Route 66 is not nearly to that level, but it is still significantly favoring the defenders. So it's just because the payload has moved past the halfway mark on this third point doesn't mean it's over yet. And these fights always come down to how far can you push it in this last little bit. And again, we know that we're going to overtime, so at some point the Gladiators are going to push it all the way. But the question is it going to come in at this fight here? Harry Hook and Unko, neither of them have either of their support ultimates. However, Shaz does have his Transcendence. Do you think, is this the fight that they're going to push it all the way?
This whole fight's on AKM. I'd be surprised if Gladiators can push it all the way, because AKM should be able to get an EMP off on Shaz, unless he's like, it's going to be hard for Shaz to play somewhere where he can hide from the EMP without his team just losing a long fight.
Mhm.
So it's going to be on AKM to be like patient, try to wait for the Zen to show himself rather than just pulling the trigger on the EMP. I think Gladiators can push if AKM misses Shaz with his EMP.
Do you think AKM's going to find an opportunity to EMP Shaz where either he can get follow-up or Shaz is not going to be supported? Or would you be the safer play and kind of EMP the majority of the Gladiators?
So this is interesting. This is a conversation that we've had in Fusion University a lot, which is if the Sombra can ever just EMP a Zen and kill him, even if you're trading lives with the Zen, it's still usually worth it.
Really? Even if you trade one for one? Even like
as long as you have Zenyatta.
As long as you have Zenyatta, but even with the spawn differential so heavily in favor of the defenders, that trade is still worthwhile?
Yeah. Zenyatta right now is in a spot where, like, we have Alarm, right? So Alarm, in my opinion, is probably the best Zenyatta not in Overwatch League. And according to, like, Jonak and, like, other top-tier Zenyatas, Alarm is an insane player.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
He's playing on insanely high ping, and his stats are still bizarrely good. So if he's in a fight, like, he can easily end a map with having gold damage. Like that's normal for him. Like he is an insane carry player. So it does differ from team to team, but I think for Dallas Fuel with a player like Unko, you definitely want to try to just enable Unko in these fights to just do as much as he can into the tank line of Gladiators.
Interesting. Okay, let's see how they do it.
I think they need to start focusing Fissure again. That's when they had their most success, is when they were focusing down tanks. Maybe AKM can get in there, they can just find a way to stop this team, but there's the
So it happened off screen there, but it looked like the EMP from AKM did come out to the bulk of the Gladiators, because Shaz didn't get hit by that. So,
yeah, I'm not actually sure who did, because you don't see any of those tanks in main right now EMP'd.
Yeah, so did AKM
I don't know
just
if he EMP'd
miss?
anybody.
Let's rewind it a little bit.
That's a weird one.
So who got EMP'd?
So he uses it now, and it looks like
He does hit Shaz. He does hit Shaz, but Shaz gets healed up.
Yeah, he hit Shaz, but Shaz is like by the right room, by the mini health pack with Mercy.
And Bishu there as well.
Yeah, so there's no way he's going to actually follow up on that. And it doesn't look like Effect was ready to help him.
It didn't look like anyone from Dallas Fuel was ready to help him there.
Survive a little while longer here, Los Angeles Gladiators. We will have Effect finding Shaz. The trance is out of it now, and Surefour on a 14-player
I'm not sure why. They could have totally won that fight.
The Gladiators?
Yeah, I think Shaz messed up. If you back up a little, I think that as soon as you see AKM EMP, you can just play a little bit slower and try to get up this trance.
Do I have this?
Like if you're
go ahead.
If you're hacked, I don't know why you'd push in there as a Zenyatta. I think he thought his trance would come up in time, but just ended up pushing up and dying.
So Effect does he does get there in time to actually follow up on Shaz before the hack wears off, and he can Transcendence to counter push.
Yeah. I still think it's bad that Dallas had to use both Trance and EMP. EMP is such a good ult that you should be trying to use it to like win a fight alone, but
win a fight alone and charge up the ultimates for the rest of your team.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Player kill streak finally ended by Mickey. Minute 45 on the clock, and Dallas Fuel here at the very bitter end are able to hold on.
Effect died to a baby, but feels sad.
That they absolutely needed there. Surefour All right, for the moment, staying on this Widow. Now, this is okay because they push the cart to such a distance that the fighting will take place near the cart.
I think Gladiators should win this push. It might be a really long fight because Dallas have both tank ults, but like you have 2 support ults to only beat, and you have the Widow in the long fight.
Now, you were saying the same thing though earlier, that Surefour doesn't really have the sightlines that he needs to, be a terror, right? He can definitely contest main and contest the payload, but if they're holding where Dallas Fuel is holding right now on the left side, there's no real place that Surefour can actually place himself where he can actually get a ton of value until the fight moves onto the cart. So long fight either means that Surefour is going to be getting continuous value, from the backline uncontested, or he gets no value because they're playing out of his sightlines here. But I do agree with you that 2 support ults to only beat puts this very heavily in favor of the Gladiators. Although Fissure does have his primal to sustain, Bishu doesn't have his bomb. So
yeah, there's some like weird intricacies between Gladiators running Zen Mercy versus Dallas on Lucio Zen 2. Like, if I'm in Dallas's spot here, my conditions to winning a fight are playing this high ground, making their tanks go cart, hacking them, and focusing them.
absolutely.
But that's just really hard when Shaz has trance.
And here's a question, just in general, not related to this, but we're seeing that Mickey's at 80% to his primal, and Seagull has his bomb. So both tanks have ultimates, which can be used as basically like a second life or a second win. They get another chance at staying alive, as opposed to like a Graviton or a Hammer, which is a team-wide ultimates. These are more or less like survivability ultimates. Like, you can use them to get kills. You can primal offensively, you can bomb and get a triple kill and whatnot, but we see it quite frequently that these ultimates are used to kind of just sustain themselves during prolonged team fights. Now, how much does having primal and bomb online lend itself towards making up for a lack of a defensive support ult?
So it can, but Dallas have to go for an aggressive play here. I'd want to see them send AKM and Effect to flank through like the high ground. If you see where AKM is right now by the door,
Absolutely.
If you were to go high ground and get ready to drop into the back line, you could probably have Mickey and Seagull commit to a dive. And the only issue there is Mickey's 20% to ult. So Gladiators probably don't know Mickey's exactly 20% from primal.
Yeah,
but if they make the call to focus him, it could turn out bad for Fuel, and they might be forced to beat on their dive, which is going to turn out poorly. But I do think Dallas need to play aggressive here because they are down 1 support ult. Even though the defensive ults are the same, because I wouldn't consider Valk a defensive ult.
It's more of a tempo ult.
Yeah, like Trance and Beat are the 2 like hard defensive ults that just keep your team alive. I do think that if you can trade, let's say Dallas dive, they build Monkey ult and they trade Diva and Monkey ult for Trance. That's an amazing exchange for them, because now their beat is just trading with whatever Glads want to dive with, and in that prolonged fight, that's what's going to turn the fight, is who has more support ults to use.
So you think Gladiators is going to win this fight?
It's the same kind of thing. I think it's really on AKM and Effect because of their comp, just to make action. I do think Gladiators should win this fight. But like Dallas could win it if AKM and Effect get a good dive with Seagull and Mickey.
Cool, let's see.
Largely untouched. It's just a matter of, can he find the right angles here? There is plenty of high ground on Route 66 to get a good offensive Widow position, and he's nearing another ult.
Yeah, he is on top of it right now. Soon you'll be able to see through walls here, the entire team.
Beat comes out from Harry Hook, Trance, so ult for ult.
For him. He will he still gets that
Bomb
snap.
lands. That's what Effect needed.
That's huge because Big Goose had
Yeah, that was a really good hack
they
on the
wanted
Big
to
Goose.
stagger that and use Valkyrie right after Transcendence. They are going to get a couple of kills of their own.
This fight started in a really awkward way, though. I think Dallas messed up.
In what way did they mess up?
You saw Effect see Asher and go for the counter dive.
Yes.
I think that Effect should immediately go into the back line.
And why is that?
Gladiators comp wants you to be fighting Asher. Like the more pressure that's on Asher means Surefour just has more room.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's why, like, the same thing on first plane. Asher wants to be taking that duel with Effect. Effect wants to be killing Surefour.
Now, when we're talking about the Tracer 1v1s, though, how much of a choice does Effect have to not take that 1v1? Like, it's very much like a Pharah duel, right? The Pharah, either Pharah can force a Pharah duel, and I feel like it's much the same way on the Tracer, that either Tracer can force the Tracer duel only by mutual understanding that both Tracers say, hey, we're not dueling each other, does the duel not occur? So how much?
Kind of. Mostly, so from my experience playing dive on defense, what you want to do is you want to have your Tracer in a position where they can't force the duel. You want to have your Tracer in a position where for the fight to start, they have to extend. So if you go back a little, Effect is in a great position. Effect is hiding. They did not scout him. Like a way, I think it's actually way at the start of the fight. And he's totally ready to dive their backline.
Okay, so
Like, I think Effect's position is perfect.
We're
I think it's a little before this.
right
This is right after he forced out
before?
Asher.
Yeah,
just a little further back.
here.
Like,
Oh,
this position for Effect, I think, is great.
let's,
And I think as soon as
Placed near the cart.
okay. So this is the
Yeah.
very start of the fight that we were watching. Effect is in this location right here. So he's on the he's in the kind of like connector to Mega.
yeah, and I think this position's awesome. But when he sees Asher, he pushes him instead of just trying to wait.
Sees Asher. And he pushes him. Exactly as you said.
Yeah, so Effect's initiating the duel. I think if Effect just tries to set up on the back line, it's better for Dallas. It works out well because, like, they force Trance with the dive. They get a hack on Big Goose, so Big Goose has no mobility, and Effect gets an easy pulse bomb. But I still wanted to see Dallas set up for more of a dive than they did there.
It's insane that you spotted that. Wow.
Playing a lot of Overwatch. I probably play Overwatch for 6 to 8 hours a day, and I probably watch VODs. Like every day I scrim, I watch all of the VODs from that day of scrimming. So Overwatch has kind of just become my life.
Still, that's very impressive. Wow. Okay, let's keep watching.
For him, he will. Oh, he still gets that stack. Big Goose gone.
That's huge because Big Goose had Valkyrie up. I think they wanted to stagger that and use Valkyrie right after.
Effect really
Giant
is
Saiyan.
forcing
They
this
are
duel
taking
with
control
Asher.
of their own. Progress being made on the
Yeah,
targets being tested right now as
I'm
the
not sure if he's been doing it all series,
Meanwhile,
but
Fissure slamming
I don't know
some
either
people
because I
back.
didn't watch the full series. Be something to watch for, certainly, though. You know, I agreed with you the entire way. I just didn't realize that Effect was the one that was forcing the 1v1.
Yeah.
Quite the spot.
Challenge the payload when you got
And now because the fight's broken out so much, Surefour's in just an absurd position. as
Yeah,
far as LOS.
Surefour is able to move forward enough that he just has sightlines, and this one right here should be what they need to cap. Yeah, that's it. That's all she wrote. Finally get into a position where Surefour can get value. Doesn't matter. That's done.
A lot of times what you see if you can't snowball with that Widow Mercy Zen comp is instead of changing your supports and DPS, you can just swap to like a McCree to try to give like a little bit more aggression in your hit scan play, but the same kind of pressure on the backline.
Mm-hmm. Wow, interesting match so far. So, who looks like the better team right now, Dallas Fuel or Los Angeles Gladiators?
Individually, I'd probably say Dallas so far. Like Unco has had some insane plays.
Yeah,
I think the
Unco's
tank play from Dallas has been pretty fine, but it seems like they're just not playing to their comp's strengths. And they're playing in the Gladiators game, and Gladiators comp is just better for that.
This is like that's a pretty general theme of how Dallas Fuel has been over the last 3 stages, though, right? So, okay,
Yeah, it's interesting.
predictions on what LA is going to run. What Dallas Fuel is going to run on attack. Do you think
I'd want to see them play Widow.
you'd want to see
They're probably gonna
AKM
play
on the
Sombra.
Widowmaker effect? Oh, you'd like to see them play Widow. You think they're going to play Sombra?
Yeah, AKM seems to be forcing Sombra in a lot of spots. Oh, awesome. Widow. Perfect.
Nice.
It seemed like Dallas was trying to force Sombra a lot on defense, so I wouldn't be surprised. But
No, Harry Hooks has switched off to the Lucio. Do you think he's just going to speed boost outside of spawn and then switch back to Mercy? Because Mercy pocketing AKM can be extremely strong with that damage boost as well as the hard pocket. Or do you think Harry Hook's going to stay on to the Lucio?
I think it would be a fundamental mistake to not swap Mercy. I'd be really, really surprised if Harry Hook stayed Lucio going out of spawn.
So
think
would
he's
I.
just gonna use it for the
So would
speed.
I, absolutely. And they're just on Hanzo so that they can recon the train car if they even stick on it.
Yeah. This is something that a lot of professional divas do that I find really cool. They just sit in spawn and look at your comp. Because they know they can get out with their shift, but they know that they can just sit there and look.
Yep. Okay,
So Gladiators defensive comp is what I wanted Dallas to be running.
Gladiators defensive comp is what you wanted. Gladiators defensive comp is what you wanted Dallas to be running,
On defense, yeah.
but instead they ran AKM and the Sombras.
Yeah. I think that Gladiators comp is just stronger into Widow attack than the Sombra comp, and that you can swap to Sombra on second, and maybe swap it on third even, but the Widow on first point is just too strong. Like if you watched Fusion play London in the stage playoffs, you kind of saw that like one Widowmaker having a good day on defense can just be the end of a team.
Absolutely.
Like Carpe just destroyed London for no reason.
For no reason.
And I think in this kind of matchup, you need it. Well, Carpe is amazing.
So maybe it's just kind of confirmation bias or something like that, but I feel like we've been seeing a lot more Widowmaker in the last couple of stages. Has there been any specific shifts in the meta that have kind of prompted people to play more Widowmaker? Or, the grapple changes were too far in the past for that to have been the cause. They certainly helped Widowmaker's survivability and mobility, but why specifically in this stage are we seeing so much Tracer and Widowmaker dive? Is it a byproduct of the maps, shifting meta? Why do you think we see so much Tracer Widowmaker when we didn't see as much Widowmaker in the past?
So, especially before Overwatch League, you had more limited rosters. So it was harder to have people who were just like very good at Widowmaker. Normally it was more team specific than anything else.
Ah, yes.
But it's a mixture of like a lot of teams don't play dive right now, which confuses me coming from contenders where like a lot of teams in NA play dive. Like dive is very popular in NA contenders.
Absolutely, yep.
Whereas it seems like in Overwatch League, a lot of teams are more opting for like, I wouldn't even call them pick strategies. They're kind of like solo carry strategies in a sense. Like AKM has to put in work for this comp to work. Surefour has to put in work for their comp to work.
Absolutely.
And if either of them are having a bad day, they just can't win. They shouldn't be able to win fights at least.
Now, it's kind of an opinion around the stream where Widowmaker is kind of counter to the whole idea of the team-based strategy, because in very much, in a lot of different maps, let's take Gibraltar Third, for example, there's basically one fight, which is the ground fight. There's the, the 5v5 or whoever's pocketing the Widow, but then the primary deciding factor on which way the fights go on something like the end of Gibraltar Third is going to be which Widowmaker wins the duel. Do you think that that's a problem in Overwatch, or do you think that Widowmaker is too good, or should be changed in some way, or is she a nice challenge and a nice way to force people to try and kind of work around her?
So she can be a bit annoying as an in-game leader to try to plan around. She's like, because she's an unknown variable in every fight. So like when I'm prepping us for maps and I'm trying to like run through how I want us to play a map, most of the time if I know we're going to be in a Widow duel, I just try to avoid that Widow duel as much as possible. I try to set it up so like we know where the Widow is, we're playing out of the Widow's line of sight, and as soon as we go into the Widow's line of sight, someone's contesting her.
Fair
because
enough.
I really think that like it's weird in Overwatch because you don't have the time to talk about it like you do in a MOBA, but there's a lot of little decisions against Widowmaker that matter so much more than any other comp. Because if you just peek the corner for a second, you might die.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to take a quick moment just to say hi to Seagull. He decided to pop by in chat and say mercy. So mercy to you too, Seagull. Good to see you. But yeah, you're talking about when you are running kind of mirror Widowmakers, it's better to kind of avoid the duel with the Widowmaker and then keep fighting onto, the tanks and trying to contribute value onto targets that are, not the other Widowmaker. And that's kind of a lot of the ways where the more popular way of thinking about the Pharah duels is that, if the two Pharahs kind of get caught in this aerial combat situation, it's sexy. It's what people like watching those double aerial directs, and they're really cool. But if one Pharah, tries to be, if one Pharah is trying to shoot the other Pharah, and then that Pharah is actually just raining rockets into the tanks on the ground, that unless the Pharah that's trying to force the duel can kill their mirror matchup, the other one's just going to slowly win based on providing more value over time. So
yeah, definitely. I'm also in a luxury position where I have Who Are You on Genji.
Yep.
And obviously Who Are You is an amazing Genji player, so we can kind of, maybe even if we're playing a little bit of a worse comp, we can compensate just because our dive is going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also a little weird, right? If you think about it from Dallas's perspective, they don't have Rascal, so they don't actually
Which is
have
too
a Genji
bad.
player.
Huge Rascal fan, personally.
Me too. So they don't have a Genji player going into this match. So I think a lot of their prep is more around how to mitigate that weakness than it is about what the strongest comp on each map is going to be.
Fair enough. Any final comments before we actually take a look at the map?
I want to see AKM destroy Surefour.
Get the fuck out of here.
You don't like AKM?
What? Tasumi is the best player there is and ever will be. Just sit down, son. Let's go fucking cheer for.
Start taking this fight, Los Angeles Gladiators. They've been on point with the counter dives.
I got to meet AKM at LAN and he gave me a Red Bull, so I was pretty happy.
That's awesome. Ooh, damage boosted headshot onto Seagull. Oof, damn it.
Okay, that's huge.
Yeah,
Come on, sure, Dad. I believe in you.
That's exactly what AKM had to do. He had
Come
to win
on,
that
res
duel. The
sure
will
for
go
and
off,
shoot
though.
AKM in the
Big
face.
Allowed to make that happen.
AKM had a
despite
lot
the
of
fact that
opportunities
Dallas
there to
Fuel
kill
tanks were there
supports.
to try and get the punish,
Yep.
trying to use that body as bait.
Even still, though, the fight stabilizes and Glads are down mech.
Now the tank's doing so much work for
Now, where was Shaz that he dropped there? Shaz dropped to Mickey, right? Where
I
was-
think Shaz was up by the pillar and he couldn't rotate because AKM was shooting at him.
Oh, okay.
So then, when Shaz went to rotate, Seagull and Mickey had a really good dive on him. Alright, it may not have been Seagull, may have just been affected Mickey.
These fights have really been scrappy, haven't they? We haven't seen like one clean team wipe from either team.
Sure, Four's allowed to live. Sure,
Yeah,
but
I'll be honest, I've
it
actually
seems
been
like
pretty
Gladiators were
impressed
able
with
to really
Dallas'
take advantage
performance
of
given the
position
number of like tank swaps they've had.
Absolutely.
Like now Seagull has played only two roles for them. Mickey's played 2 roles for them. They have a new flex support going into this match. Like,
Do you think OG is going to be the turning point? You know, having a dedicated main tank for again, we don't know why Coco's not being played, but you know, having a dedicated main tank as well as Rascal filling more in on that Genji. You think it's going to be a turning point for Dallas Fuel? I personally do.
I think OG is a very, very good main tank. I've played with him a little bit because he was trialing for academy teams prior to going to Overwatch League.
Yep.
And I think he's a very, very good Winston.
By the way, fuck AKM, sure for hit that shot.
Hopefully AKM can get rezzed. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And Seagull is the talk about Seagull is that he's moving on to DPS and off of Diva. Now, everyone's been saying that they've been, pleasantly surprised with Seagull's off-tank play. With him moving back to DPS and them having Rascal, AKM, and Effect on the DPS lineup, is there a place in the roster for Seagull still after OGE comes in?
So I put as weird as it is to say, I'd probably put Seagull in like a weird hero pool that isn't covered by anybody else, kind of like
Hanzo. I think Seagull's Hanzo.
Hanzo, Farah, Junkrat. I think is like if you
Absolutely.
talk to me about Seagull, that's what I think about Seagull for.
Hard agree. Yep.
But I don't know how well Rascal plays those heroes, right? So I think that there might be some contention there, but obviously as a team they're going to be playing whatever starting roster suits them best.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as everybody can get along, I think it'll turn out well for them.
So, yeah, like on maps like Junkertown, for this stage specifically, we'll probably see Seagull subbed in and either play the Hanzo or the Junkrat, you suspect?
Yeah, on attack, probably the Hanzo with AKM on Widow, and then on defense, probably the Junkrat with AKM still on Widow.
Cool.
Or Effect on Widow.
Oh, I will unmute.
So focused right now on Big Goose, but Big Goose doesn't seem to care.
He has not gone too far. The healing will come in, and they're going to actually bring Asher back to life. Big Goose falls as he took to the skies too quickly. This one's a bit of a brawl, but brawling on the point, always good for the defense.
Gladiators are handling this fight really well.
Is there... So you always say these things, but you never tell me why. You never tell chat why. So anytime you say something, I want you to just finish that sentence with because,
Sure.
and then
Sure.
We're an educational stream here. Educational stream.
So AKM does not have a good sightline this fight.
Absolutely.
AKM is playing pretty much from corners, from low ground. All in all, it's not great for him. So Gladiators are trying to punish that as hard as they can. And as soon as they see anybody peek, their tanks are committing, their tracers committing, and they're just trying to pressure out AKM and give Surefour the best LOS possible.
Mhm.
And because Dallas's tanks are still trying to come through that choke and play around cart, they don't have the option to even trade backlines. They have to counterdive. And counterdiving against Widow is like, it's not terrible, but if you're in her LOS, it just gets really messy. Because she gets so much damage into your tank line while you're counterdiving that it's really hard to
like
win
both
for a long
teams
fight.
have. So like normally that wouldn't matter in the mirror matchup, but you're saying it's because the one Widowmaker has the poor sightline that the counter dive is just a lot sloppier with one Widowmaker having the sightline advantage.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Are kind of trying to work their way around right now. I mean, this has been the Gladiators' calling card so far in this series.
In fact, winning that Tracer duel.
Leading the charge, taking the fight to him, and the rest
Yeah,
of
that's
the team
huge.
follows.
If he loses that Tracer duel, I think they have to fully reset, but winning it, they get to push out a little.
Valkyrie right into short four as he gets jumped by Mickey. We'll keep
Do you
him
think it's
alive.
worth
Here we
it for
go.
Mickey to
Taco
try
down,
and jump
right over.
Surefour there? Like,
Right over.
we're seeing, Mickey jumping Surefour there solo. Surefour still having his grapple. He just kind of like takes space, and now Mickey's in Narnia. This is something that, this is something, instead of, let's just take this a quick break from reviewing this game. And if you are in Plat, Diamond, Gold, any of those, and you find yourself going against a really good Widowmaker, like a Widowmaker who's smurfing or something, what is the best way that you can kind of individually counter that Widowmaker with a pick of your own? So Winston, I don't really see, it's one of the more common pieces of advice given to individuals in the low reloads to counter Widowmaker is just go Winston and dive her lol. But, if she's pocketed by a Mercy, then suddenly you're doing no damage, and she has the grapple to just grapple away from you anytime you dive. If you go against like a really good Widowmaker in solo queue, what's your best option to counter her?
I think you just need teamwork to beat Widow. Widow. There's a couple heroes in Overwatch that just punish individual play. Widowmaker is one of them. Roadhog is one of them. Junkrat can be one of them, where you really need teamwork to make your composition beat her.
Absolutely.
And I think that, especially in comp, whenever I'm playing against like a good Widowmaker, I'm on East Coast, so I don't get to play against the Overwatch League players as much, but whenever I'm playing against a good Widowmaker, I'm just trying to have my team go dive, and then I'll usually try to set it up to speed and dive her so that I'm not stuck in that fight where I'm like, she's going to hit the shot on me eventually, I'm just going to run in circles until she does.
Fair enough. So there's no kind of like individual hero pick you'd pick? You wouldn't do Genji and try and chase her around, or?
If she's a really good Widowmaker, and especially if she has the support of her team, there's no way you're going to be killing her without either you going Widow or having the support of your team on either dive or like, I guess you could go heavy tanks, but it's probably just teamwork and a dive on her.
Awesome.
He's just kind of contemplating.
I would like to see Dallas try to
Scene there
fully take
of
the high
already-
ground. I think it's weird that they're still playing cart. Like, if you look at when this fight started and when it ended, it's probably taken 50 seconds.
Yeah,
for
it's
Dallas
been
to
quite a
actually
significant
reset.
amount of time, yeah.
What he can hope to do. Seagull gets another meter out of progress.
I would
for
like
the
to see them
payload.
reset
They're
earlier.
definitely going to have one more contest, though. The payload almost never moved during that fight. In fact, it's still not moving.
Yeah.
Happen because sure.
Oh,
This is
sorry. I had the team slipped. Of course, it's not moving. The defenders won that fight. That
yeah,
right.
no worries. I really like this angle from AKM. It's not hard to contest from Surefour, but it's just going to make him play a worse angle and also relieves pressure from main when Dallas's tanks push out.
Now you're saying that by like AKM being in the tunnel is going to make sure that Surefour. So why would Surefour not take this duel against AKM when he's in tunnel?
So he probably will, but there's three things with this duel that are good for AKM. One, if AKM wins the duel, he gets an insane amount of space, and Dallas can immediately push out a main and take cart.
Second, if he
loses the
dies,
duel,
he's res.
They have res, and Mercy's out of LOS of the Widow, so she can get the res off for free.
Mm-hmm.
And third, probably like the most common and best case, is he's not even trying to win the duel. He just wants to make Surefour contest him by playing somewhere where Surefour has to choose between looking at him and looking at main. If Surefour is choosing to look at him, Dallas Fuel's tanks get to walk out of main for free and like pressure cart really hard on Bishu and Fissure.
So that makes it even, though. What part of that gives Dallas Fuel the advantage? So if the two Widows are locked in the duel and the tanks are contesting each other on the point, we are in mirror matchups here. So what about this gives Dallas Fuel the advantage and doesn't just make things even?
I don't think they do have the advantage.
So you think
I
that
think
this is
I
kind of
think
like the rock,
Gladiators
paper,
have to
scissors?
mess up.
Okay, so we're kind of in the, we call it a slap fest around here, where we have mirror matchups, or kind of like, you know, if it's like 4-2 versus 2-4 dive or anything like that, we have these matchups where kind of we're not trying to engage in a specific way because no team has a distinct advantage. It's more that we're going to be looking for people out of position, people who are making mistakes, overutilizing resources, or, you know, at the end of the day, it's just going to come to they're fighting each other. Somebody's going to get an ultimate. Something's going to happen eventually that starts tilting the scales very slowly in one direction. But I'd agree with you. This is making it even, but I thought that you were indicating that this specific position gave AKM an advantage, and other than maybe the resurrect advantage, giving AKM like a second shot at life, I think this makes this kind of setup from both teams is really strong, and it makes the fight even more than anything.
Yeah, I don't think there's an angle AKM can take this fight that is good.
Absolutely.
And I think every angle he can take other than the one from the cave is bad.
That's 2.
I say as he dies. They still get the res off for
My
free,
boy
which is nice.
Tatsumi. Yeah. Oh, I should have had that one too. Bam! Sit down, son. I picked the right sniper.
I want to see AKM get off Widow for this retake.
Who would you like to see AKM go back to the Sombra?
Ideally, it'd be Genji, but like I
Again,
guess if you
please don't.
if you can't play Genji, if you can't play Genji, maybe you just have to stay Widow. But I think playing Widow over and over again on a retake is hard, just in like team morale wise. Once you lose the Widow duel like 2 or 3 times in a row, your team kind of starts playing a little differently, where they might not be
absolutely.
expecting you to win it. So it can be like once you start losing the duel, it's much harder to even come back into that fight.
Here's a question, and this is for the benefit of chat. We've been talking about whether it's Tracer Genji, Tracer Sombra, Tracer Widowmaker. Why not McCree? Why not Soldier? Why not Doomfist? Why not Pharah? Why not any of the other DPS heroes on the roster? What is it specifically about those heroes that does not work in this situation?
So Widowmaker right now is in a really unique spot where she's not on every map, but on a lot of maps with multiple layers of high ground. So Hollywood is another good example on Hollywood's second point.
Gibraltar.
Route 66, Gibraltar, Numbani. Numbani less so, but maps with like really, or Junkertown with really large open areas and maps with multiple levels of high ground, Widowmaker's vertical mobility is much better. She can get the Mercy out of a lot of danger by grappling up. And she just kind of wins most of those hit scan duels, or should. Like a Widowmaker versus a McCree, when they both have Mercy pockets, the Widowmaker can one-shot the McCree, and the McCree can't really kill the Widowmaker.
Absolutely, yeah. In terms of
so that's kind of why.
In terms of hit scan, we're looking at the Soldier and McCree themselves. If we're looking at who counters who, it's going to be the range itself. McCree wins in close range. Soldier, kind of has the advantage of mid-range, although Widowmaker still has that ability to just the one-shot, one-kill. And then anything close to or past the Soldier's fall-off range is just Widowmaker wins. So that's absolutely the case. But in this case, when you are losing the Widowmaker duel, why would you want to switch on to Genji himself instead of just switching the comp entirely? Like, why do teams, especially teams in the Overwatch League, and especially during the last 3 days of play, have we not seen any other compositions except dive? Is it just because this is what teams are practicing and they feel the most comfortable on? Or is there legitimately no other option in this meta that comes even remotely close to being as powerful as the Widowmaker Tracer dive?
So I personally think the Overwatch League teams may have overreacted to the Sombra patch. In terms of how they're playing. Like, Sombra's strong and that's fine, but I still think a team like... So Fusion, for instance, right? EQO is currently suspended, so they can't play EQO. And because Shadowburn has such a passive Genji style against the Widow Tracer dive, it can be hard to kind of work him in. So obviously Fusion revert to playing Snillo and Carpe, both still insanely good DPS players, but then they're playing that Widow Tracer.
Yep, and they're kind of in the same situation Dallas Fuel is, where they have a great Tracer and a great Widowmaker, but they struggle if they don't have EQ or Shadowburn in the lineup, which, if they're running Snillo or Carpe, there's no one who's running triple DPS. They don't have the opportunity to flex onto Genji, and we saw that come out. Was that day one? I think we saw day one. Fusion struggled really quite significantly with running their Snillo Carpe setup.
Yeah, but my point behind that is you need a Genji player who isn't just like a Genji player. You need a Genji player who's going to be like, I am going to go 1v1 this Widow, and I'm going to be better. And like that kind of mentality from your dive players, I think is really how you beat this Widow Tracer comp, where the team aspect you can do, where you can set up the coordinated dives and Punisher, but you also just have that outplay potential where it's like, my Genji's insane, he's gonna dash in and one-shot the Widow. Like playing with Who Are You has kind of showed me that where like there are some fights you can win because Who Are You is Who Are You, and there's some fights you can win because EQO is EQO, and because Rascal is Rascal, and Bird Ring is Bird Ring, because they're amazing at that hero. And I think that not having a Genji player who's like top 5 in the league right now really hurts your team because you're forced into this hit scan duel.
Now, Seagull is known for his Genji, but it seems that like the very best Genjis in the league are people who more or less specialize in it or like to the verge of one-tricking it. Is this Genji, that different of a hero that you basically need to one-trick him in order to be the best? What about his playstyle is so different from all of the other DPS heroes?
I don't think it's that you need to one-trick him. It's that your mechanical skill on him has to be much higher than the baseline, in my opinion, for playing other heroes in Overwatch League. Because other than like Tracer and Genji and Widow, most of like the tank and off tank and like main support and flex support roles are, despite them being very mechanically intense, they're kind of linear in how they're intense.
Mm-hmm.
Like every fight is kind of a rinse and repeat. Like I'm LO, I'm trying to hide from the enemy. I'm trying to get set up. If you're a support, it's like, okay, I want to make sure I'm not diveable and I can stay alive. Whereas for Genji, it's like every fight is going to be different. Every fight, there's probably a chance for you to carry. Same thing with Tracer, right? Like they're both very high skill cap heroes that you need that dedicated person on, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Okay, let's enough theory talk. Let's give people more practical.
The reason he didn't go in there is
I don't think Dallas can push this until AKM kills Surefour.
Yeah, absolutely. So unless something else happens, like while the duel is going on, a tank falls or something like that. AKM got Shaz though, but that's going to get rezzed. AKM gets Big Goose, punishes the res. That's nice. That's definitely advantage in favor of Fuel. However, Surefour, my boy. My boy. You doubted. You doubted. Oh, did I pause? My bad.
On that payload though, so Dallas not making any progress.
Asher's taking out Unko.
Again, another. Ooh, almost got the one clip. It's too bad.
Oh boy, that was just a pulse in there, but whatever. The damage was already done at that point.
So one of the things that I say on this stream very often is that during devolved team fights, I consider a devolved team fight the state that a team fight arrives in after the initial plan or the list of ultimates, which ultimates we're going to use in this fight. After that's over, if the fight hasn't concluded, I consider it a devolved team fight. And one of the things that I say quite frequently on my stream is that in a devolved team fight, it is primarily the mechanical skill of the players that is going to determine who wins and who loses, if all other factors are equal. Now, some of the other things, for example, like mid-fight target calling or shot calling, keeping people focused on burning single targets down. Do you think there's any other things, or do you agree? Do you disagree? What makes the difference between winning and losing a fight when things just get really fucking chaotic?
I think when fights get chaotic, if your tanks are still alive, they're definitely the biggest difference maker. Not even just that they're like there, but usually that tank role is the most mid-fight. They have like the most power. Like their target is usually the one you want to be on. Where they are as a support is usually where you want to be around because they're making space for you. So I think that better tanks. I don't know. I agree with you a lot on the individual skill aspect, but it's so weird because since both teams have Widow, like I feel like the Widow alone can decide this team fight.
Absolutely,
every time
yes.
it gets chaotic.
But just in general, not this team fight in general, just any chaotic team fight, just 6 people thrown into a pot, shake it around. What determines who wins? And what can you do to make sure that the team that wins is you? Just aim better? Call better targets?
Positional calls, so where you want to make the team fight happen mid-fight. So like if it's Koth, I'll say fight point, fight their main, peel back like our high ground to protect Zen, fight on Monkey. Stuff like that can definitely help your team get in the same area, and then it's really on.
I'm gonna cut you off because Siegel typed something and it's gonna fly off the top of the chat if I don't read it right now. Siegel says, in general, late in a team fight, if a Tracer is alive, the Tracer will carry. In the middle of a team fight, tanks will carry. Do you think Siegel is correct?
Yeah, in the middle of a team fight, your tanks are making space, and the other one's target calling. And then I don't know what you mean by an end of a team fight. If you mean like a 3v3
just cleanup.
or
I assume like cleanup when tanks are dead. Yeah, that's what I assume at least.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of it from like a contender's point of view. which is maybe the wrong way to look at it, because in a contender's point of view, like normally what happens is we try to focus tracers pretty early on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I agree. Tracer's definitely the best cleanup here if she can stay alive, but I think the tanks are the most impactful mid-fight.
Awesome. Now, this is a question that comes up a lot of like amateur teams. I coach or assist teams around the Diamond Masters, Grandmaster level quite frequently. And let's take Fusion University example, if you don't mind talking about your team for a second. Who is the individual who calls the initial target for Fusion University?
It depends. Probably more often than it should be, it ends up being me, because I see somebody who's like flanking me and I ask for help and I'm like, okay, so it really depends on the fight. If we're going into a fight proactively, it'll usually either be Zachary or Beast Halo calling the target.
Zachary being your off tank?
Or Tracer.
Tracer. Who's your off tank?
So it's usually either a Tracer or Winston calling the target.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're retaking, it usually ends up being me or Alarm, because we're the people we're trying to protect. So like as we're retaking, we push up, we take space, and I'll be like, Monkey on me, start yelling Monkey, we'll counter dive Monkey, or I'll be like, Tracer flanking, I need help with Tracer. Our Tracer will come back, and me and him will push that Tracer.
So you don't really have one defined target caller. It's more of like who is in the best situation to call at that moment.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting.
Our team is pretty fluent amongst all the communication roles, and I just try to fill in everything that's not being done.
So with kind of multiple people being able to call targets, I assume you have situations where two people call two different targets at the same time. How do you manage that on a team?
In scrims, after we usually talk about which target is better, and for people to just like, normally people listen and we're able to like, someone calls Monkey and someone calls like Zen on point, so we go on the Zenyatta.
Yeah.
But sometimes it just get confusing and we watch it back and it's definitely something that improves over time, right? Like you as a team learn like who the most important person should be who's calling, who the least important person should be who's calling.
So if two people call different targets, instead of kind of creating a comms hierarchy, you try and educate the person who made the wrong call to make the better call next time? Is that sort of the approach you're
Kinda. Like if let's say we go into a dive, right? Like let's say we go into a dive, we call Lucio's out of position on point, we dive Lucio. And as we're diving the Lucio, Monkey and Tracer dive me and Alarm.
Yeah.
Immediately the comms and our team become me and Alarm both yelling for help. And even though they're diving Lucio, they both know that for us to win the fight, Alarm and I have to stay alive. So they try to jump back and protect me and Alarm because we were just louder, which is kind of a weird way to say it. But
so why would they not want to, trade? So assuming they dove on the enemy Lucio and Zen, if you're calling for assistance, why would they not just finish off killing, the equivalent of you and Alarm on the other team and then making it like, why would they, especially after they expended their mobility, why would they try and return to peel you after they've already committed to a frontal dive?
So it's definitely point dependent. But the main reason is the same kind of thing between like why I was saying trading EMP for Zen is so important. If you're not killing their Zenyatta and they're killing your Zenyatta, the longer the fight goes, Discord matters so much more than any other ability.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially when, like, I've learned more from protecting Alarm than I have any other Zenyatta, because it just feels like he does more damage than anyone I've ever played with, and I'm not even sure how or why. It's like some fights he's like, yeah, I have trance, and I'm like, Alarm, it's been 30 seconds on Koth, and you have ult, and he's like, yeah, let's go in, let's dive. So it's maybe a little bit skewed in my opinion about when to protect our Zen versus when to just try to trade. But I think mostly on attack, you want to be protecting your Zen more than you want to trade.
You're making me really interested in watching a lot more of Alarm's play. Now, I did miss.
He's playing on high pain.
I am going to interrupt you one more time. We did get another host coming in, this time from Fozix, for 270 viewers. Thank you so much, my friend Fozix. If you guys don't know, Fozix is the support player for NRG Esports. I'm sure you've played against him, Elk, but another support player and another very intelligent support player with quite the mind for Overwatch, and he streams as well. So definitely give him a follow as well, and thank you so much for the stream, my friend. Any finishing points about comms or staying coordinated in a chaotic team fight before we watch more?
I think it's really important to know your team and know, like, for instance, there are some people who, when they're dueling and when they're in the middle of a team fight, don't want to comm.
Yep.
A lot of times it's either your Tracer or Genji players. Like, they're more focused on their role, and that's kind of why it falls to tanks. And it's just important to like get to know your team and what your strengths and weaknesses are, especially in those chaotic fights, to kind of play to them. You don't want to be forcing someone who's uncomfortable calming in the middle of a team fight to be calming.
Awesome. And if a mod doesn't mind, if we can get a mod to link to Alarm's Twitch chat, Alarm and Phasix. Excuse me, if we could get some mods to link those Twitch chats to the viewers in case they're interested in checking them out.
Popped Valkyrie during all of this engagement. They got almost zero value out of it. I guess being alive is of some value. Big Goose is going to have his own Valkyrie up here. 2 minutes. And
I think Gladiators used too many ults at the start of that fight too. Like they used Monkey, D.Va, Zen, and Tracer ult, and Dallas only used Valk Trance.
Now AKM's the one who's got his Infrasight up.
Yeah, that was nice timing as well. I'm gonna burn more time off this.
I guess it's because it started out though with AKM getting that really good double pick on Shaz and Big Goose.
He will have Pulse Bomb.
There we go. Delayed infrared coming in for Surefour.
Huge stick.
Stuck, not quite gonna get it. And the heals are excellent. Fisher finally dies. Effect has to get it done with the pistols. And there's the follow-up.
Surefour wins the Widow duel again. So
big plays coming through here for us.
Yeah, I think that Big Goose messed up by going for that res.
Beginning of the game, and now he's decided it's time to deliver 2 kills and make it 3.
If they lose this extended fight, it's definitely because he went for that.
Shaz a good dueler in his own right. Makes him
I'm actually really glad they spectated Effect for this fight. He went crazy. Holy smokes. Just gonna watch it again.
Infrared coming in for
So stick onto Monkey, burning him down. And there doesn't really look to be a ton of coordination on the side of the Gladiators here. Our Big Goose dies trying to res Fisher, I think?
Yeah, I think it's just greedy.
Yeah, and then Shaz gets left out, and there's not a lot Shaz can do. Effect cleans him up, so.
Yeah, I think it was hard how they retook that. Bishu needed to eat the pulse bomb for them to have like a solid fight, which is 50% Bishu, 50% Effect playing well.
Mm-hmm.
And then mid-fight, I think Big Goose needed to not go for that res and just try to pocket Shaz.
Yep.
Shaz and Surefour.
So despite Surefour getting some nice shots in on Widow, it was not enough. Okay, so coming into this final fight, first fight, looks like we're coming up on both support ults for Dallas, whereas got only transferred the Gladiators themselves. If you're Dallas, do you play this any different than Gladiators played into you? You know, slowly try and get AKM take room, you know, try and avoid the Surefour sight lines unless Effect clips him? Nope, he does manage to get away.
So that dive was amazing and pretty much like that. I don't know, that dive was so much better than anything Gladiators did on their offensive side dive-wise. Like, Effect has a really good flank where he's not contested by Asher.
Yeah, and blinks across. And like, in this case, the Effect's arriving before Mickey's dive, right? Is like, you're talking about the two-man Tracer Monkey dive here from Dallas Fuel, right?
I do think Effect maybe goes a little bit early, I
yes.
don't think it's bad. I think that Effect is going because he sees the Widow alone, right? So
yeah, and especially if he almost got the one clip. So
yeah,
absolutely. Like having, you know, usually like, you know, we've talked about this quite a few times, but you know, when we're talking about worse dive teams, you know, their Monkey jumps in and then their Tracer kind of like triple blinks to try and catch up to the Monkey to attack whatever he dove on. And then you have the better teams where the Tracer is on a flank and arrives at the target that the Winston is diving on to kind of attack it simultaneously with the burst damage. But here, Effect jumps in early, puts quite a bit of damage down, and if Monkey had landed like on the Widowmaker, it would have bursted him with that 75 damage landing combo. So
I think
it's a bit
best
early,
way to
but not a
phrase
lot.
it. Yeah, I think the best way to phrase it is you want the Tracer to be forcing the enemy mobility more than the Monkey, because the Tracer obviously has 3 movement abilities and the Monkey only has 1.
I legitimately have to write that down. Holy smokes. It's just... Oh my god, somebody find me a pen. I have to write that down. That is... You want... Oh goodness. I gotta remember that. Widow or Tracer forcing mobility more than the Monkey. That's just so insightful. That's one of the profound things that you sometimes just say that makes so much sense, and I have never thought of before. I don't want to open my notepad because it's got all my other notes on it that I don't want to show. But can we just talk about how profound that was? What you just said there? Just
another way you can use it practically is like if we're playing dive against, let's say we're in a dive mirror and we're both playing Zenyatta, Lucio, Genji Tracer, Winston D.Va in a mirror match. A lot of times you don't want to dive. You want your Tracer to be in their backline, kind of focusing their Lucio and you wait for him to amp, and then when he amps, because they have no more mobility, you can dive. But it's like a lot of the things bad dive teams do is they try to force a dive when the enemy has all their cooldowns up, when it should really just be your tracer trying to force those.
I love, and this ties in perfectly to like why the why dive is one of the ways that you're countering like quad tank or slow comp, setting up the crossfires and kind of forcing mobilities. It's just like it's all of the things that I've been trying to say or convey, but you just said it in like a singular sentence that is just so painfully obviously when you say it. And if you missed it, chat, he's just saying that in a dive, specifically a two-man dive that we were talking about, you want your tracer to be forcing out the mobility more than your monkey. And I just think that's so short and profound. That kind of sentence alone totally made this session worth it for me.
I'm glad.
I just it's some of those like little simple things you say that I'm just like everything just kind of it just ties a nice little bow around everything.
Eyes on all sides of his head.
Come on, you gotta
so,
get that!
it's so close to a one
Surefour
clip.
somehow lives, but that sets it up for Big Goose, who has to come back here to try and heal Surefour. Both of them dead yet again to start this fight.
So Shaz trances and two of his teammates die anyway. That's such a huge turning point for Dallas.
Absolutely,
Really
yeah.
getting work done here for Dallas.
This is just
God,
gonna
Effect's
make us
playing out of his
so
mind
much choice
today.
ever, so
Yeah,
Or at
he's
least
a-
in this single
Always
map.
put him in a very awkward
Angry
position.
Effect
And
is a
like,
force
there
to be
with
reckoned with.
tracking around and keep him up. Is there someone else you need to go to get? And he's been up in the air a lot of times. Look, and this is one of the
Dallas
problems
did
why
use both
Gladiators
support
weren't all
ults,
that
though,
good
in
Stage
chest trans.
1. Big Goose's mercy is
It's unfortunate.
questionable at times. His decision to fly to certain targets is questionable at times. He's much more comfortable on the Lucio.
And Unko once
Oh.
again. Oh,
Nice double bomb.
Perfect, right in the angle. In fact, Unko and Mickey to follow.
So they are pretty
Yeah.
closely matched on time
He's
here.
had somewhat of a quiet day with a beautiful
I think that-
self-destruct that's going to give the Gladiators.
I don't know. Once again, I want AKM to go Genji here, but I get he can't, which is kind of awkward.
Well, it's not that he can't, it's just weak.
It's better to keep him on Widow, yeah. For his
Absolutely.
strengths.
Sure forward.
God, it's ironic.
Not really. It's just
to the rest of this fight.
the story of this map, pretty much.
Where he was before, now he's looking for it. They're going to be gathered up. He goes for the blink. Could go for the
It's a good
stick.
flank by
Doesn't
Asher.
even need to. Still holding on
So
to
you
it.
could see
AKM
Asher doing there what I thought Effect
And
should have been doing in the first defense for Dallas.
Yeah.
As he sets up on a flank where the Tracer can't contest him and can't find him, and then as soon as Fisher's ready, Asher goes for the dive.
Nice.
That bad there. They will eventually get Mickey as Fisher is still out hunting.
Mickey with the primal as well. Mickey can get back into this fight very quickly as well, but now we're down sub 20 seconds. We got 15 left on the clock here for Dallas Fuel. Surefour's changed it up. He's on the McCree now as
I like
well.
the-
Effect has
I
been
like the
spotted by
McCree swap
Asher,
here.
who is still patiently holding on to that pulse.
In this last fight, it's going to be a lot more about killing Effect early, and because AKM went Somber, the McCree swap lets him pretty much 2v1 with the Mercy pocket onto both flankers.
Yeah, and this McCree swap wouldn't have come out unless AKM. It was like if AKM stayed on Widow, right? Surefour would have stayed on Widowmaker as well. Like he's winning the duel, better sightlines, and the McCree. If AKM was still on the Widowmaker, of course, Surefour would have just kind of be playing into more or less a counter. Whereas Surefour puts a lot heavier threat and pressure onto Effect as well as AKM. So instead of kind of doing the mirror match, Surefour gets to move on to a character that more or less counters both of Dallas Fuel's DPS at the same time.
This is actually one of the more common matchups in contenders scrims, is you have one team playing Somber Tracer, usually on Koth, and the other team playing Hitscan, usually McCree with Zen Mercy.
Mhm.
And I don't think Dallas, it'll be interesting to see if they play it how I would play it, which is you're focusing the Discord target because Gladiators have more healing, and AKM is really only looking to hack Bishu and Asher.
Yeah, absolutely.
If AKM can hack Bishu or Asher at the start of a fight, Dallas can get really aggressive and probably win the fight. But if he either doesn't get a hack off or hacks someone like Monkey, McCree, or like Mercy, it's really hard for Dallas to commit through the tank line of Gladiators.
So you'd be wanting AKM to play more of like a not quite a deep, not like a backline flanker with Effect or anything, but more just trying to find the openings if Asher pressures them, or being on the side on the flank and landing a hack on Bishu or Fisher or something like that. That's what you'd like to see.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Let's see how they actually do it.
Push over the Somber. No Widow left on the field. They're getting a lot of free push onto the Cartiers. Mickey and Siegel walk this one in.
And they need to actually decide to have a body there to contest, and now Los Angeles Gladiators, they're waiting for it. Asher, spotted by AKM. Shouldn't be too concerned by that, though. We will have the bubble getting thrown into it, and now Fisher decides to go primal. That's going to force the trance out.
Both
so
trances.
You have a lot of healing here on this point. Fisher is hacked.
The hack on
Mickey-
visual while he's primaling is very good.
Yeah, so he just like waddles around and whatnot. Mickey was forced to primal as well.
For the top, going to close down Asher.
I think
And
that-
right now, Dallas is so closer. Need a couple of kills. Shaz will oblige.
I think
you
that at the
get
start of that
one, but I
fight,
don't know if it's enough.
Gladiators did
Gladiators
not
is
realize
the last
Unco had
hero you want
trance.
at this
I think Unco built trance quicker than they had expected, and they went to like all in him at the start of the fight and try to just trade 1-for-1 or 2-for-1 just to kill Unco because they knew he'd have it up. But because he built trance really quickly.
Yeah, he did.
To be fair.
When I rewound it, he's at 65% here. So just while you're talking, we'll play and kind of watch Unco charge his trance up.
So Gladiators kind of go for the all-in play, whoever their IGL is, that they don't have trance. We're gonna kill Unco before he gets it up, and Unco gets it up just in time so that when that dive comes through, he's able to survive and make it to cart and keep his team up.
76% here. What action is it that actually gets him the last 20% of his transcendence here?
And they need to actually decide to have a body there to
He got a right click into Bishu.
Yep. That was
contest,
it.
and now Los Angeles Gladiators, they're waiting for it. Asher,
And do they commit the hard dive onto him?
spotted by AKM. Shouldn't be
Now, Fisher jumps into the back line to try and just take out Unco out of the equation here. He's got the trance.
too concerned by that, though. We will have the bubble getting thrown into
Asher
it. Now
follows
Fisher
up to
decides
try
go
to
primal. That's
turn
going to
cone
force the
and-
trance out.
Now Asher's
So Dallas, you have a lot of
now Asher's in a really bad spot. Asher and Fisher are pretty much left alone in the back line, split from the team, and they can't kill anybody.
Mm-hmm. So what's the, if you are trying to do that, and this is, so they're doing kind of a deep dive. We hear about it in two ways. We hear about the teams who are diving onto Zenyatta to try and kill him before he trances, and then we also see the teams that are diving onto a Zenyatta in order to force the trance out. How do you play? What is the difference in the way you play between trying to dive to kill a Zenyatta before he gets trance and trying to dive to force the Zenyatta to trance? How do you play those two situations differently?
So the play to kill, if you want to go back to watch Fisher jump, you kind of see him make the decision in the moment. When he primals, he knocks Zenyatta back to the enemy main, way out by the doors.
Yep.
And when you see him make the decision he wants to kill Zen, he jumps behind Zenyatta to try to knock him back into Asher. If he chooses just to try to zone Zenyatta and leave it a 5v5 on cart where Gladiators have trance and Dallas don't, that's a way, way better fight for Gladiators. But because they choose to commit most of their monkey ult and their tracer cooldowns to kill Unco, and he trances and makes it back to the team, it just becomes a very hard fight for Gladiators to win.
Excellent. There was one comment I wanted to read to you. Real talk, Elk is fucking brilliant. The Fusion University team is ridiculously lucky to have him. I've learned more from this one map with you than a week in other streamers' streams. See? People like you, Elk.
PogChamp.
So if you guys didn't know, Elk streams some of these VODs on his own channel, and the man gets 20 views. So check him out.
I'm very inconsistent and have a very loose schedule.
Diamond in the he's not a consistent streamer, but good God, you want to catch him when he's live. So definitely give him a follow if you like what's going on today and you're learning a lot. I'm learning from him.
one as a stall hero.
Not a whole lot that he can do there, sir.
It was also really good by Dallas there. They didn't have too many people counter dive.
And we will
So because Dallas knew that Unco was going to live regardless because he had trance up, they didn't have to commit any of their resources to peeling for him. He was just able to use the trance to cancel out the dive.
Siegel says, "Don't let being inconsistent stop you." I'm not sure if you have Twitch chat open as well or not, but
No, but that's funny.
Now the overtime. How does this overtime actually affect what we're going to be running? Are we going to see the same compositions? These Widowmaker tracer dives, the Sombra tracer dives, or with only a minute approximately left for either team, are the compositions going to be different?
So
is Siegel going to actually run Torb?
I would be very surprised if Siegel went for it.
Hey, he ran Bastion once on Route 66 attack and won. Anyway,
Yeah, that's fair.
so but
I think that the issue. I have the same issue. Just as an IGL, I don't like Widowmaker as a hero most of the time because she feels so inconsistent to me. Just like if you're looking at the game in an overarching standpoint, Widow is an inconsistent hero.
absolutely.
So I think Dallas would either want to play something very pick heavy, like I think Hanzo Widow might not be bad, or they should be playing dive. I think playing Widow on attack here is risky.
Yeah, he's not going to.
From the Gladiator side, though, I could see wanting to stay on it because you're winning all of the Widow duels, right? So even if
Absolutely.
Dallas are playing Widow, like Surefour is probably very confident in winning that 1v1 still.
And the pressure, not just confidence for Surefour, but kind of it's got to be pressuring AKM that he's been taking these Widow duels and losing so many of them.
Sadly, it is
Yeah,
going to be the
there's
Diva in
something
play.
about the Widow matchup that's also like mentally fatiguing if you're losing it.
Sitting all the way back, actually on the ground now, so he's not a dive target. AKM will offensively.
I'd still rather
run
see
his
Genji, though.
Sombra. Not really enough time to really bank on getting an EMP up. It does charge fast. It's really going to matter how much damage AKM can put out here. Why is looking for those tanks as Hack gets interrupted?
So here, if you want to go ahead and pause, I'm very surprised Gladiators are playing low ground with their backline.
Gladiators are playing low ground with their backline.
So Shaz and Surefour are sitting
Bank
like
on
by
getting an
gas,
EMP
like
up.
behind
It
gas
does
station. You
charge
can kind of
fast.
see them wall
Yeah.
there instead of high ground.
Really gonna matter.
So right here, yeah.
And I like that against Widow, but Gladiators should have had the scouting to see that AKM's on Sombra, and against Sombra, this positioning is really bad. Because it's so easy for Sombra Tracer to set up a flank on you, whereas if you're high ground, it's much harder and usually takes more cooldowns for Tracer and Sombra to get in position to dive you.
So you're saying that they're here because of the Widowmaker, but there was no Widowmaker, so they should be on the high ground.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Anything more detailed than that, or seems pretty simple?
The reason Mercy's End is strong into Sombra Tracer is because you can usually play on high ground where the DPS already have a hard time gap closing to you.
Absolutely.
But here they're like playing into the strength of Sombra Tracer, which is using long flank routes to like de-stealth and just immediately execute somebody.
Right next to a health pack, right next to corners and whatnot. They can get that pincer flank set up on them really quick.
Yeah.
Much damage AKM can put out here. Why
That
is he
Bishu
looking for
hack,
those
if it had
tanks?
gone off,
Hack
could have really triggered the
Nice
higher
defense
aggression
there
from the
from
fuel.
Los Angeles
It's
Gladiators
interrupted.
denying the hack. That could have really thrown things out of whack if
I like
Bishu
Fuel
got
playing this slow.
silenced
They're not really
at the
pressured to
beginning
do
of that
anything
fight.
here.
Instead, they will continue to hold here for the Los Angeles Gladiators. It took Dallas Fuel quite a bit of time the first time around here. Only 20 seconds left.
So both tracers go on to a single target. Asher goes on to Unco and gets the kill. And Effect's probably going to kill Surefour here?
I think Unco got too greedy there. Unco went for a right click in the face of a Widow. And like,
Yeah, but
Surefour
that's
can
not
hit
why
that
Unco
shot.
died, though. Unco died because Asher kind of just found him out and chased him down, right?
right, but Asher only gets on Unco once he's already half.
Oh, was there a body shot that landed onto Unco?
I'm not sure if it was a body shot or he just peaked at half health, but either way, it's
Continue to hold
pretty
here for the Los
bad.
Angeles Gladiators.
Because
It
we
took
do see Unco, yeah, he's going for the right click.
Dallas Fuel quite a bit of
He only takes
No,
chip.
you're right. He's only missing about 20 or 40 HP. Asher just
time the
gets the
first
one
time
clip
around
on him.
here.
I put that more on Harry Hook than not being with him. You can see they're split right now.
You got my. I was going to ask you why Harry Hook wasn't with him. Man, you got to give me an
I think
opportunity
it's-
to look smart at one point. I'm just looking like the interviewer at this point.
I think it's just synergy. They probably haven't played together long enough to know their preferences. So like Harry Hook thinks Unco would probably come back main. For instance, Chips would probably go back main. Chips is a more passive Zen, whereas Unco wants to go somewhere he can take the 1v1 with the Tracer.
And where he can actually get value out of his, one of Unco's largest strengths is his really high mechanical skill. He wants to be in a place where he can land those right clicks, and we saw that those right clicks were what carried Dallas Fuel to the first point cap, like in round one. So it's not surprising that he's going for that sort of attack before. Like, either it's greedy or it's risky. You can call it whatever you want. That's Unco's playstyle.
Yeah, I think Harry Hook should be with Unco here. It's a pretty big fuck up to not be with him.
Siegel says, Unco backed out Mini instead of the road away from both me and Harry, and we weren't fully used to his paths yet. Is Siegel. So you're saying that this is based on like a pathing issue? I agree with you that the retreat to the Mini is a little bit strange. It kind of separates him from his team. Is however, your sentence makes me wonder. You're saying you and Harry aren't fully used to his paths yet. Is like pathing or routes of retreat something that you explicitly practice or discuss, or is it something that you just kind of get used to as you're more familiar with the players?
It'd be interesting to hear Siegel's take on that, because for me, I usually just try to adapt to whatever my Zen likes doing. But I definitely get what he means. Like, Unko's a much more aggressive Zenyatta than Chips is, so you can even tell by the way Unko's peeling here, is Unko's going like, I'm going to kill Asher. Like, that's in Unko's mind. He's not dying. He's not needing to run from Asher. He's gonna kill Asher here.
Oh, so this isn't a retreat. This is come to me, turn my corner, enter my sight lines, and I'm gonna get a mini while clicking you in the head. So Unko's not retreating like a coward. He's kind of, you're thinking he's baiting him and Asher into a less favorable position where he kind of has the advantage in the 1v1.
Yeah, and if Harry Hook and Siegel were like used to the way Unko wanted to play that, they could totally save him. But because they're not ready for Unko to do something that aggressive, that he kind of gets hung out to dry and just dies.
Interesting. Let's keep going.
Only 20 seconds left.
What a fucking shot.
Yeah, that's pretty great, Butcher. We're not gonna lie. That's I wish we had first person of that.
Hope to get some staggers in here, and now with 9
And that should be dead, right? That should be fight dead. There's no way they recontest.
There's no real recontest.
Harry Hook is there as well. AKM.
The flanker picks your support, and your flanker gets picked by their backline, so it's just really hard.
Overtime Wick burning down. And Dallas feel they
I can't. How did Dallas hold this?
There was only 1 minute, and they lost the one team fight that happened because they played slow.
Right, but like if Gladiators can do something like a bizarrely aggressive for their first fight and just try to trade like 6 for 2,
yeah,
and then reset quickly and get another fight in.
I'm not sure if you can go for the reset with it that close though.
Well, if you look there, when Dallas go to recontest, it's like probably 5 seconds left on the clock.
Yeah.
Gladiators do have an extra 17 seconds, which might seem small,
Not
but with where that fight ended, that might end up being their second fight. Oh, that shot is...
That was a nice shot.
Has happened in this matchup today.
Unless Siegel specifically wants to, some people don't want to always be in the public life. The man just wants to sit and enjoy the stream. Let the man just enjoy the stream. Just let the man relax. He's got his own stream he's gonna be on.
That's clean.
He's playing an Overwatch.
The Hunter.
Like, unless he asks to join,
He's doing his thing.
I'm not gonna bother him
The
about
countdown
it.
having begun here. Minute 17 on the clock for Gladiators now, and they get their chance at a push.
So what I'm saying
Yeah,
is
stop asking me to get Siegel on call.
Old Sombra could definitely get EMP, right? Everyone play around pack, everyone take a little chip damage. New Sombra, maybe he gets that hack off on the Diva, and that defense matrix goes down.
I just hope Gladiators don't do something cheesy.
What? You don't like cheese? Why not? Cheese is awesome.
So, I think that, like...
Sorry.
Cheese isn't bad. It's just not Overwatch. Like, at the point where
That's
you're
a
trying
very
to
odd
cheese,
opinion.
like-
Cheese isn't bad. It's just not Overwatch. Nah.
Like, in my mind, Overwatch is like this complex team-based game. Where,
And
like,
and is cheese
communication
not a part of that?
matters.
Is that cheese not a factor that you have to take into consideration, or it's a variable
you're
or a
playing
chip you
cheese-
can put on the
okay.
table?
Let me rephrase. When you're playing cheesy, you're not playing Overwatch. The enemy team still has to play Overwatch to win, but the team that's cheesing isn't playing Overwatch.
Go on. You haven't sold me yet.
Like they're doing something because they think fundamentally they can't win with their strategy.
So if you can't
they're,
win
like,
throwing
they're-
rock, why wouldn't you throw paper? That's a strategy.
It might be a strategy, but I don't think it's.
Are you upset that
appropriate
people
one.
can win with a composition that requires less skill?
So quad tank, I think, is a good example. Quad tank is a cheese, and you see almost no quad tank in Overwatch League. And I think the reason for that is
It's
because
easily
good
countered.
teams. Yeah. So the way I phrase cheese comps is they don't have outplay potential. Cheese comps are just something on the face of them. They exist, and it's on the defending team or the attacking team, depending on what team's playing the cheese, obviously, to beat it. And there is almost never outplay potential from the cheese comps. I don't like them based on that principle that you're conceding to the enemy team, saying, "Are you good enough to beat this?"
Isn't that?
And I think that-
isn't that in some way kind of how Widowmaker works, though?
That's why I don't like playing Widowmaker. That's why I try to avoid the Widow duels personally when I'm IGLing, because I think that that aspect of Overwatch is the most volatile and the one where you easily where you lose the easiest. Excuse me. So like I would want to see Gladiators just go out on the same thing they've been doing, put Surefour back on Widow, push up slow, focus tanks. They did a great job of it last time on first point. I just think that they like. So a good example in contenders is NRG against us on defense Hanamura. They played Torb, Ana. They played solo heal Ana with Torb, Soldier, Orisa, Diva, Junkrat.
Yeah, that's real
So like
cheesy.
super cheese comp. And the way we lose
That's
to
a
that is we
comp already.
outplay ourselves.
Yes, this is true. You kind of like you. It's way easier for you to make a mistake than for them to make a mistake. Yeah.
In the same way, it's way easier for us to make the right decision than it is for them to do anything about our right decision.
Huh.
So like in the same way, I'd consider it like a gambit in chess. Like gambits in chess, they are valid openings, but they're not better. Statistically, they're not better. You're kind of putting you're putting your fate into your opponent's hands instead of having it yourself.
Interesting. I'm not sure if you've quite sold me, but you've convinced me that you've at least thought this through. Let's
Fair.
let's take a look at how the Gladiators managed to throw this.
I just don't think that that's the pick going into a map in which you only have 1 minute to push and make the most progress. Isn't it more impactful to run your own Widow and maybe get a pick immediately, then you can take that fight? I mean, not to second guess. Of course, these guys have their own strategies, and this is what they play and know. It's just questionable when you. That's why you used to run Sombra for the EMP. I'm just curious what she does in this. She is kind of now that people think she might be a pick. Kind of
Please
hero
don't play
and
Doomfist.
assassin that you
Please
focus
don't
one
play-
target
What do you got about against Doomfist?
you get the ball down because you hack 'em. But if that hack doesn't come off
Against Sombra, he's just so hard to play.
Yeah, I don't. There's no way in his right mind he'd play
There,
Doomfist.
unfortunately, wasn't able to really bring anything into that fight. Surefour not going to go for the Widow. We'll have the McCree to start here, interestingly enough.
Mercy. Okay, I like Gladiators comp. I think it's a solid comp.
Gonna run a Sombra.
Yeah, weak against Widow, strong against Sombra, right? So
Yeah, and since you saw Dallas play Sombra, I think it's a good call.
And do you think that there's any scouting required? Like if Asher or Fisher scouted a Widow, would Surefour just like huff it back to spawn and swap Widow? They have the time. Is this something you do, or
I
if
think
Dallas Fuel
Surefour might go Genji. He's either going to go Widow or Genji if they see Widow. Like the reason dive here is strong is the tanks from Dallas can't counter dive. Because of how close the checkpoint is, you have to leave at least one of your tanks cart.
Yep.
So if you commit really aggressive with that dive, it gives Gladiators a lot of room to work with.
So knowing what we know, that Gladiators do end up losing this, seeing the compositions, both you and I agree that on paper, Gladiators have the advantage in where they have to push it and the composition, and the composition itself. At this point in time, what is your guess for what causes the Gladiators to lose?
A tank overextends and either gets hacked or takes too much damage from Unco, and that gives Dallas an opening to push in.
So it's going to be either Fisher or Bishu dying or getting demeched respectively. Fair guess.
Yeah. It's
That
possible
just
a
ran in.
backliner gets picked by a right click, but I'd be surprised.
Else has not run anything except a Sombra so far, so that's why you see Bishu actually just trying.
So previously, and this is something that I am actually interested in. This one isn't for the chat. This is for the benefit of myself. Previously, you had said when Gladiators was playing Surefour on Widowmaker, that Asher wanted to be forcing the duel with effect to try and make space to give Surefour as much room as possible. Does Asher's role stay the same when Surefour is on Widow compared to when Surefour is on McCree? Or does Asher's playstyle change when Surefour swaps Cree?
Asher's playstyle should change. And Asher should still be scouting where effect is. So Asher should know in his head like where effect is and know that he sometimes should be counter diving and peeling. But mostly Asher wants to be getting Seagull and Mickey low. Because the McCree is much more tank pressure than the Widow is. So being able to like demech Diva or pick Monkey early is definitely the best opening Gladiators are going to have here.
So you'd like to see Asher move off of the duelist role more towards the tank buster role.
Yeah, it's still important though for Asher to keep a track of effect, because if effect gets into your backline for free, it can still be pretty awkward.
Awesome. Let's see how they fuck this up.
Trying to find an invisible Sombra
Yeah,
there.
it's
That's why
sick.
he's just pumping rounds in there, hoping to decloak a Sombra.
They're going for the spam. A little bit of the touch and play there from Seagull, waiting for the Discord orb to wear off. It does eventually do
Oh,
that.
can you pause?
And well,
Yeah,
there
absolutely.
You go,
That's actually really interesting. So I don't know if Gladiators saw this, but Harry Hook is playing with the tank line, and that should be a red flag for Gladiators playing this close. As soon as you see that Lucio with the tank line, that Zenyatta is free.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, he's got no
Asher
protection.
should immediately go on Unco.
Effects
You see Effect low ground.
I assume, isn't Uncle low ground as well? Uncle's got to be low ground. Like,
Even if so, like best case scenario for Asher.
So far, you're not agreeing with me because if Effect, like we were talking about previously, where Asher would want to be taking 1v1, but Effect would be wanting to be keeping himself in a position where if Asher goes for the assault onto Unco playing low ground gas station, inside through doorways with a ceiling, there's no way that tanks dive onto Unco. So if Asher does go for Unco, he's going to be doing it alone. And if Effect keeps eyes on Asher and knows where his positioning is, if Asher goes for what is more or less the free Zen, he's going to be going against the free Zen positioned on Omega with Effect up his ass. I don't think this is as free as you think it is.
He doesn't need to contest. Like, he doesn't need to dive him. He can double blink from high ground here on top of gas station.
Yeah.
And because Lucio's low ground, Zenyatta's either on high ground.
I assume he's inside. If he's inside, then he's
low
fucked.
ground though.
If he's because I assume.
Low ground.
Oh, let's see if we can see where he is.
They're going for the spam. A little bit of the
My point is,
he is high ground. He is high ground. Okay.
So even if he's low ground though, let's say perfect situation.
Yeah, perfect situation. He's low ground. Go ahead.
Tracer still gets to just take high ground from him, and immediately this choke becomes death for Dallas. They have a Tracer behind them poking, who's building bomb. The second Dallas try to dive, they have a Tracer flanking them. Asher's positioning could be way better here if he just takes upper gas. And if Zenyatta is up top, I think Asher has to be confident in taking that 1v1.
Siegel said something. Her chat's talking about it. I had to scroll up. We have no mercy, so if they poke our tanks hard, it's a feels bad man. Yeah, and that's why you've got Harry Hook playing up, because you don't have, like, without the mercy, you have no way of sustaining any sort of these like slow pushes where you just kind of play around the sight lines on the corner itself. The upside of that is if your tanks don't actually get bursted down through the poke and you successfully play the line of sight during the overtime, you should be in a position where you can actually get both of your support ultimates online. It's going to be close, but you should be able to pull it off here. Downside, of course, Harry Hook's at 8% to his barrier, even though he's playing with tanks. So that will get better, of course. But
actually, here, let me rephrase this and just talk through all the options Asher has. That will make it easier, I think. So Asher's role here is to keep track of effect and poke tanks. Not necessarily in that order.
Tanks, but
those are his two roles because they're playing McCree.
Yes.
So Asher is currently in a position where he can't do that effectively.
Why not?
Asher's position, because so high ground here,
so
while it's
Asher,
not bad,
yeah. So
he has to push aggressively.
Asher's right here, effects right here,
yeah.
So he seems to be taking like.
That's not his job here.
Didn't you just say it was?
It's to keep track of effect and to poke tanks. It's not necessarily.
Oh, so you don't like this position because he's not actually pressuring Siegel and Mickey.
Yeah, so I either want to see him flank through cave and go to flank the backline and pressure the tanks, or because of the way Dallas is playing, Asher can double blink on top of gas and have an amazing flank position onto the tank line.
Fair enough. And Unco right up there is completely free right now.
Yeah, and so it's going to put Unco in a bit of an awkward spot where Unco's in like this messy 1v1. The tanks start feeling pressured because you have two LOS, two lines of sight pushing them. And then if you commit to dive, it's probably like, okay, so let's say Dallas commit to pushing in and diving here. Mm-hmm. If Fisher still has jump, Fisher and Asher can then just eliminate Unco from this fight.
Fair enough.
So I think that Asher is not understanding his role as Tracer here, and that he should be more focused on damaging tanks.
Okay, let's see how it plays out.
There from Siegel, waiting for the Discord orb to wear off. It does eventually do that. And well, there you go, Surefour already. Just looking to melt him, shot after shot, ranging out. They're going to try and dive him in specific.
Asher dies to AKM. So Discord...
I think in main.
Yeah, it sounded like it was main at least.
Already.
Here's Asher.
Just looking to melt him, shot after shot, ranging out. They're going to try and dive him in specifically.
Asher's off on the cliff.
Will not be able to quite find that kill though. Surefour, he's still hanging in here.
And they came spray, I think, just finishes him off.
They do trade out a little bit, though. Both tanks now down. They're going to resurrect Fissure, though, to get into this mix. Dallas forced to play very close to the corner. Huge flashback headshot from Siegel.
And like that's going to be pretty bad because he was the one who was behind on ult charge anyway. So here they're moving in. Mickey's going to contest effects in the back.
Gladiators, if they can keep
Full spawn
I think
going,
just won them the map with that 1v1.
Is it?
Asher goes and 1v1s Unco. Unco wins and then gets Trance, and Trance is
They are right on top of it now.
Where is this happening? Where did this happen?
a little bit to the right.
And not a headshot, sorry.
So Asher is up here.
Oh no, Unco snipes him from range.
Yeah, because Asher was up here doing something, and I don't know where the hell Unco is. That was a long range. That wasn't a 1v1. He just nails the headshot from like 40 meters away.
Look at AKM's health too. He saves AKM when
Holy
Asher's
smokes.
pushing.
Oh, wow, Unco. Unco.
Yeah, that's insane.
That's insane.
He gets the shot. He gets the kill.
That's
all that matters, and
that's
they are right on top of
unbelievably
it
huge.
now.
That's
Also,
not
the
just
Gladiators,
+1.
if he
That's
keep getting
+1 and
this
avoiding a
going,
negative
Unco
one.
has to go for the trance just to keep his
And
team
the
in
trance.
a 4-on-4 situation, and Surefour dancing right on
Doing
the
that,
wall.
chaining it
Mickey
into the
goes using that
trance.
barrier. Mickey
Wow.
gets laid low, but Effect is there to trade it, and Dallas
And
Fuel,
after that,
they
that's
still
the
have
fight.
points
That's
on
the
this
fight right there.
formation. Oh,
And,
there's the
yeah,
EMP
that's-
that can
wow.
make
Okay.
Wow,
all the
okay.
difference.
Unco played that really well.
Believe it will. It's only Fissure. He gets
I did it-
So, like,
off the ledge.
I wonder if
Dallas
it-
trying
yeah.
to put a 1 in that 0 column.
Make it actually happen here.
That's the
It's
benefit of
very
taking these
sure
analysis
coming back
videos
into it.
so
Big
slow.
Lucius
We get to
as
see
well. Shaz going for the full zoom yacht again in the trance.
such a
But
minor
this
thing.
is all just buying time here. Bishu is still so far away, and
Wow.
everybody is here from Dallas Fuel, waiting with open arms. One after another, they will fall. Los Angeles Gladiators.
So yeah,
Not
I
this
think
time.
Asher needed to do
And
more
will
on
be
their
the Dallas
attack.
Fuel picking
Absolutely, you got no disagreement from me. So, give us the overview. That was the only match in the series that Dallas Fuel actually won. The map series was 3-1. Now, honestly, other than AKM being severely outclassed on the Widowmaker by Surefour, the teams looked fairly even to me. Did they not? What was your opinion?
I think team-wise, Dallas actually looked better in that map. Like, the fact that AKM was losing most of the Widow duels, and Dallas still managed to win a fair number of team fights, and ended up, like, actually taking the map, it was impressive to me. I think like, the tank play and the dive synergy between Effect and the tank line was really good. Like, that impressed me, especially on third point defense and on their first point attack.
And you and I both missed it, but Siegel said that they killed Shaz at 99% to trance.
Oh my god, that's all. that whole fight for Dallas was pretty lucky in my opinion.
Like,
Managed to keep.
better to be
keep
lucky
AKM
or
alive at
good,
1
right?
HP.
Like, I don't know. You can't say much of that was luck. You know, it's the right combination of positioning and plan that just has the pieces fall into place. But that's pretty awesome. Also, hi apply. Good to see you. Yeah. So continue on about the coordination even looking better for the Dallas Fuel than it did for the Los Angeles Gladiators.
I think that Siegel and Mickey are working a lot better as a tank line than most people would expect with such short amount of.
I still think
practice
Mickey's
time.
making some
that's-
questionable dives. Definitely.
Gladiators. Oh yeah, because they win the series, not the map. Okay, I was confused.
Yep.
I think Effect in this series, or at least in that map, played a lot more of like a team tracer than he normally does. A lot of times, Effect goes for kind of solo carry plays. He did a lot against Shanghai Dragons, where like he just tries to be the better tracer and take the 1v1s. Whereas in that, you saw more synergy with Mickey, more like combined dives. I liked it. I thought Dallas played that map pretty well.
Do you think that kind of like shift in Effect's playstyle would have been on his own prerogative, or would have that been sort of like team play or strat that they had worked out, or was that just Effect adapting?
I would guess it had some outside influence, but it's probably also somewhat Effect.
Okay. We're gonna get into another map here. Do you have? But first, I have ignored quite a few subscribers and hosts and donators, so we'll do this.
No worries.
We'll do this quickly. Just if you are in the chat, I do appreciate all of the subscriptions and donations and whatnot. I am planning to go full time into Overwatch, starting in 23 days. So it means quite a lot to me that even you don't have to. You certainly don't have to. Don't feel obligated to support the stream. But those who do, I really truly appreciate it because I am working towards becoming an Overwatch League coach or analyst. So thank you to all the support. We got Twille coming in with the Prime sub. Fond LMI Tier 1. Sanchez 014. It's Sanchez. How you doing, Sanchez? I haven't talked to you in months. Gifting the Tier 1 sub to Siegel himself. Siegel, welcome to the ELO Hunters. I hope you are learning a lot. Sleepy with the Prime sub, Tag M with the Prime sub, and Athena Blackout with the Prime sub. All just now. Thank you to each and every single one of you. Sam Grav donated $1 13 minutes ago and says, Brainlet here. What defines a cheese comp? You said this earlier, but do you mind repeating what you think?
Sure thing.
Go ahead.
So the way I would define a cheese comp is a comp that takes away your ability as a team to outplay the enemy team, and where you're giving up whether or not you win or lose to just whether or not they can adapt and beat your comp.
Awesome. And apparently the guy's name was Fondle Me. So
Quite the name.
I pronounced it wrong. My apologies, Fondle Me. A couple more subs coming in right now. We got Caradrian. Fuck, words are hard. Thank you so much for the tier 1 sub. The Giant Chicken, as well as Meissner with the tier 1 sub. Got Sharon23 subscribed with Prime during the map review. Omagacella. Man, this is just like, how badly can I butcher a whole bunch of Twitch names real fucking quick? Omagacella with Prime. Passan has subscribed tier 1. Stone Barbecue, tier 1 as well. The Bonton, subscribing with Prime. And I think, holy smokes, this list is still going. Wow, guys. Really, truly appreciate it. Yeah, this list is massive. Holy smokes. Man, I wish I could thank every single viewer, not just every single subscriber. This is amazing support. Gatey50, RKD94 used 100 bits. Absolutely sick stream today. PogChamp, thank you for doing this. You're very welcome. It's a lot of fun for me too. And thank you, Elk, for joining me. I'm glad.
PogChamp?
Yeah. So get at least one more map in here for y'all. Ryan67 with 100 bits. Great stream so far. Thank you. Silver Ufer, resubscribing with Prime for 3 months in a row. Rizo451 with the tier 1 sub. Ziller8, Prime sub. Gyrodat, Iron Vada, 6asmix10, all with the Prime subs. Thank you, every single one of you who subscribed. Truly appreciate it. Hope you're enjoying the stream and hope you're learning a lot. And finally, Philandel... I'm not even going to give it a shot. Thank you so much, everyone. Overwatch League is starting soon. When does Overwatch League start today? Did I get the times wrong?
I think it might be in 6 minutes.
Oh, damn, I can't broadcast over Overwatch League.
Which would be Appeals Statman.
We're done. Wow, I wanted to do one more map with you, Elk.
No worries. I'm sure we can schedule something in the future.
Do you want to... Yeah, let's do this again. I had a lot of fun. I definitely felt like you did the bulk of the analysis, but... Wow, great.
No worries.
Yeah, we'll definitely do this again. I wanted to do at least 2, hopefully 3 maps, but another day. Okay, yep. Let's who are we going to host? Let's find somebody to host to end off the day. So a few things. Elk, do you want to give chat, because you were the star today. Give your shout outs, let everybody who doesn't know who you are, plug those socials. And you guys loved it. I loved it. So Elk, take it away. Let the people know who you are and where they can follow you.
I am Elk. I'm the main support for Fusion University, which is Philadelphia Fusion's academy team. Currently competing in North American contenders. We are currently rank 1 in our group. We play our match against Envision this upcoming Tuesday for first place seed in our group, which would give us first place seed going into playoffs, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
You can find me on Twitter at Elk. I got the awesome @Elk tag on Twitter.
Nice, because you got verified?
I'm still not verified.
You're still not verified? That's funny.
Yeah, it's sad. And on Twitch at ElkGG. Thanks so much for having me. Super excited. It's very fun.
Thank you so much for all the subscribers and donators and followers. And if you just lurked the entire stream and had fun, I appreciate you. I love you. We're going to be